Hello everyone out there in YouTube land. I'm just going to do a reaction video to the Whatever podcast. I used to watch them quite a bit actually, to be honest, but Andrew Wilson uses slurs against disabled people so much I just stopped watching them and blocked the account, but they have such good shows. I'm going to have to react to one of them. So I've got this one here. I'll not be doing a reaction to the full video because it's 3 hours and 40 minutes. But it's basically Andrew Wilson debating a feminist. And it'll be interesting. Mostly I've done reactions to like comedy or, stupid shit. Maybe Prime Minister's Question Time, which it's like a pantomime. It's like a play. With this being a serious debate between two people who are probably quite intelligent, I might have a little less to say than normal, but I will try and butt in here and there when I can. Here we go.
Welcome to a debate edition of the Whatever podcast. We're coming to you live from Santa Barbara, California. I'm your host and moderator, Brian Atlas. A few quick announcements before the show begins. This podcast is viewer-supported, heavy YouTube demonetization. So please consider donating through Streamlabs instead of super chatting, as YouTube takes a brutal 30% cut. That's streamlabs.com/whatever. Link is in the description. We prioritize messages that are made via Streamlabs. To read a message is $99 and up. We're going to read those in batches at various breaks throughout the debate. There will be no instant TTS. Now, if you want to just tip and have 100% of your contribution go towards us, no platform fees, no cut, you can via Venmo or Cash App. That's Whatever Pod on both, links in the description. We're also live on Twitch right now. Pull up another tab. Go to twitch.tv/whatever. Drop us a follow and a Prime sub if you have one. Without further ado, I will introduce our two guests. I'm joined today by Andrew Wilson, host of The Crucible. He's a blood sports debater and political commentator. Also joining us today is Kylie Brewer. She's an author, content creator, and educator. She received bachelor degrees in psychology and creative writing from Ivy League.
Every time I hear a woman who has like a qualification in psychology but doesn't work with mental health patients, I always just think they got that qualification to try and understand people, to try and, get their way. They didn't do it because, they wanted to help people. They wanted to try and outsmart them. So imagine getting a qualification to try and outsmart someone. A degree, in fact. And then you still can't.
School, Brown University. She plans to pursue a graduate degree in public policy. She's also a self-described leftist, feminist, anti-racist, LGBTQ activist. The topic today is feminism. You will each have up to a 10-minute opening statement, and then the rest of the show will just be open conversation with some prompt changes and breaks for messages from the audience, followed by each of you having a closing statement.
I am quite new to this reaction stuff, to be honest, so I will try and be fair and not interrupt them when they're making a good point. I'm just learning. I'll get there.
Kylie, you're going to go first. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Hi, my name's Kylie. I just wanted to start by saying a little bit about what I stand for, which is just feminism generally. And I would want to say that feminism is a crucial movement, both in the United States and across the world. Feminism is defined as advocating for gender equality and challenging the structures of power that perpetuate discrimination and violence against women. It is not an attack on men. Rather, it is a call for an equal and just society. In the U.S., despite progress, women face systemic inequalities, which means that gender inequality is rooted in many of the systems that we see today. For instance, women in the U.S. earn 82 cents for every dollar that a man makes, and black women earn just 63 cents. So there are three reasons potentially that this could be the case, which is I would say that we do not value female labor enough in this country. And there's a phenomenon called male flight, which is typically when a field becomes very female dominated, 50 to 60% women. Men typically begin to leave that field and the pay rate for women drops. So that might be some sort of implicit phenomenon happening, as well as domestic labor is unpaid, which is when women typically take on more of the child rearing in homes. And obviously that is not something that is compensated.
Okay, I know I said I was not going to interrupt them and I was going to let them have their opening statements, but she's going to speak on like this for 10 minutes, and I have this problem where I have to correct people. You know, it's called OCD. I actually got mine from my twin older brother and sister used to torment me as a child and lie to my mum and dad about things that happened and what they did wrong and try and get me blamed. So I developed this obsessive compulsive need to correct things that I said wrong in front of me, especially about me, because otherwise I'd end up getting beaten the fuck out of by my dad. So unfortunately I still have this issue and I can't let her go on for 10 minutes the way she's gone on. So first of all, the reason that women are earning 88 cents on the dollar compared to the men is because she's basing that figure off an average of all the men, all the women in the United States who work and their pay. Now, the reason that women earn less on that statistic and that analysis than men is because certain things are not taken into account, variables, for that reason. So, for example, men tend to work a lot longer hours than women. Like soldiers, fucking oil rig workers. Not all the time, of course. There's always exceptions. You know, I'm not talking about... There's no absolutes here, what I'm saying. So 99% of the time, like, men are working longer hours. And on top of that, women have maternity leave. So when they have a baby, they're off for 9 months and all this sort of stuff. And they need time off. And there's reasons why women get paid less on this average statistic than men. It's not because they are actually getting paid less and they're being treated worse. It's just there's certain reasons why the figure ends up showing that, because they're not taking into account all the variations, all the variables. And if you miss all the variables, on the face of it, something can seem like that. So it's not men oppressing women. It's that numbers she's got, although are correct, don't take into account the variables. Like, more men work than women, for example, for starters. Then there's more women at home taking care of children than men. Then you also have women tend to have more time off than men for monthly problems, child things. Like, there's reasons for these things. It's not because of male oppression. What was the other thing she said that I needed to correct? Wait there.
It becomes very female dominated. We do not value. Three reasons. For instance, once that gender inequality, despite progress, women face systemic inequality. For instance, women in the U.S. earn cents. So there are three reasons potentially that this could be the case, which is I would say that we do not value female labor enough in...
Bullshit. Do you know what it is? The men of this world would love more female labor. We would love more women working. But the truth of the matter is most women are not willing to do the jobs that we would want them to do. Like, you want to be a plumber, there's probably 0.1% of the female global population working, like, as a plumber or a bricklayer or an electrician. Like, if you want equality, in all honesty, it's not all about getting all the equal rights as men. It's that you have to also suffer the equal punishments. That's the truth of the matter. And if you're not willing to suffer those equal punishments, it's not equality, is it?
This country, and there's a phenomenon called male flight, which is typically when a field becomes...
That's what I was going to correct. This male flight phenomenon is because when men leave an industry and sector and it gets dominated by women, they start having, obviously, paternity leave and time off each month because of menstrual cycles, monthly cycles, whatever you want to call things, because women have more time off. So more money is lost in pay because of the time off. So on the average over time, it looks like they're getting paid less. But it's not. It's just because women are being off more for genuine medical reasons, or whatever you want to call them. Guess it's medical.
Very female dominated, 50 to 60% women. Men typically begin to leave that field and the pay rate for women drops. So that might be some sort of implicit phenomenon happening.
So this is what you can do in America. They're trained in all these debate tactics, but realistically, this is a deceitful way to debate, is to take a statistic and then present it in a way that benefits you, and not present the facts that don't benefit you about that statistic, if that makes sense. So she's taken the number because it makes her argument look good, but she hasn't actually explained why that number is the way it is. She doesn't even understand why it is that way. She's just tried to make men out to be the reason that's the way it is. It's all our fault. That is the root of feminism. Everything is a man's fault.
As well as domestic labor is unpaid, which is when...
I am sorry for cutting her off though, but I can't let these people just say bullshit in front of me and not correct them. I will correct you. I don't think you should have a 10-minute opening statement and be allowed to just rattle off bullshit for 10 minutes. Like, it has to be honest and decent in a debate. If you're not having an honest, decent debate, like, what's the point?
Women typically take on more of the child rearing in homes, and obviously that is not something that is compensated.
I dare you.
So she mentioned the childbearing there, but didn't mention it when it came to the minimum, the wage.
And for women who do go to work and raise kids, there's inadequate child support, meaning we often miss out on promotions or other major opportunities in the career because we are not supported in that way. So.
No, it's not that you're not supported in that way. It's just not in most businesses' interests to promote someone to a position of more responsibility and power when you might need to just leave at any second because your kid goes to hospital. Or businesses understand that a parent will put their child first before the business. It's common. It's just the way it is. So they're more likely to promote someone who doesn't have that obligation. So not only do they not have the distraction, they're less likely to have like time off and need to leave or have a loss of focus on their job because of issues at home. They're much more likely to promote a single woman or a single man with no kids than one with a child, usually, to a position of power. Not always, it depends, but quite often. And it's an evil world, sure, but that's business.
This all could explain that economic inequality. Which brings me to, according to the World Economic Forum, it's going to take roughly 300 years to close the gender gap for both economic and political empowerment for women.
I was laughing there as well with Andrew. That's ridiculous. Just after around World War II, a female rights activist, a suffragette, or I think it's a suffragette, jumped in front of a horse at the race in England, famous race, can't remember what it's called. It was the Queen's horse she jumped in front of, died, right? Horse ran her over, died. That was the spark that lit the match for the female rights movement really picking up steam. And from there, women got the right to vote. Then they got equal rights for employment and blah, blah, blah. And we're now at the point, personally, where I think women have more rights than men. So when I see a woman saying it's going to take 300 years to get gender equality, when women already have more rights than me, I don't understand that. Like, I just live in a different world, obviously.
Countries like Afghanistan, women still battle for access.
Yeah, fine. If you're going to talk about Afghanistan and you're going to talk about the Middle East, that's fine. But there's no point whinging about that in America. Sitting in a nice air-conditioned room in America with nice lighting, fucking 4K cameras, fucking millionaire robotics builder Andrew Wilson sitting there, masturbator, and that's not going to help these girls in Syria and Afghanistan, is it? You have to go to them countries and help them there. Like, that's what I don't understand. All these feminists are not going to admit it, but they're all pussies. They're all scared. Because if they're not going to go to Afghanistan and Syria and fight for female rights, are they? Because it's not going to work. So they have to sit here and whinge at us for it when we've already give our females female rights. Well, what's the point in whinging at us for it? Women have more rights than us in our country, so to blame us for the actions of men in other countries, like, how's that fair? Like, it's so stupid.
Access to education and healthcare, as well as personal freedoms. In some places, if they open the door without being covered, they may be beaten.
It's like blaming the Egyptians for what the Vikings did, or blaming the Muslims for what the Jews did, or blaming fucking the Americans for what the Babylonians did. I mean, what the fuck is this?
Or arrested. Which brings me to this. The home is the most dangerous place for women, according to the United Nations.
That's because most women spend most of their time in the home. If most women spent most of their time in a factory would be the most dangerous place.
The home, the place where we should all feel safe. 6 women are killed every hour around the world by people they know. Now, here are some other very depressing statistics. 1 in 3 women experience violence at the hands of a man in their lifetime, whether that's physical or SA. And that's according to the World Health Organization. 50% of women who were unalived in 2017 were killed by an intimate partner violence. It's according to the United Nations.
One of the worst things a feminist does is completely try and portray women as victims and men as villains, and never concedes to the idea that women are also villains and men are victims. It's not always a woman a victim and a man a villain. It's quite often always the other way around. It's not... There are many bad men in the world, but there are many bad women. To sit on the fence and just only talk about bad men and never mention the bad women makes you a bad person. To be honest, it makes you a sexist misandrist. You can call yourself a feminist all you want, but really, what so far she has displayed to me is sexist misandrism. She can sit there and use all these statistics to make men look bad all she wants, but I could do the same. 80% of divorces are initiated by women. There is more domestic violence and physical violence in lesbian relationships than male ones. More female teachers are charged with sexual crimes against their male students than male teachers. We could do this all day, but it doesn't help anything, does it?
650 million women were married before the age of 18. This is according to UNICEF, meaning they became child brides, often against their will. Now, the final statistic is that 71% of human trafficking victims are women and girls. This is not to negate the importance of male victims and standing up for their rights as well, just to point out.
Okay, I take it back. She's mentioning male victims there. I was wrong. That's fine. She got there eventually. So, I should have just given her some more time. But still, she's only got to the point of mentioning victims when it's come to, like, human trafficking of boys. Not like the suffering of men. Like, it's easy to recognise the suffering of a child. But to recognise the suffering of an adult male, a misandrist is not capable of it.
A general pattern in the fact that women are typically overlooked as well as overrepresented in being victims of crimes. Now, there's also a general tendency to blame women for our oppression, that we make less because our work is less important, or because we choose to work in fields that don't pay as much money, or that we were SA'd because of the clothes we were wearing, or that we were unalived because we chose to marry the wrong man. But none of these things are true, and they are rooted in really harmful misconceptions.
Look, you can't use fucking people like Andrew Tate to try and think that represents me. I don't believe any of the things she just said there. I don't believe any of that. So she can't then say, I believe this because I'm a man. Like, I'm sorry, whoever the fuck you are, fuck off, no. Like, I kick off with men who think them things. I kick the fuck off with men who believe and say those exact things. So to blame me because I'm a man for what those men believe, it's ridiculous.
About what the feminist movement stands for. I'm sure you all are also expecting me to be very angry today, and I hope that I won't be, but I'm truly interested in furthering the feminist cause, promoting equality, even if it means sometimes talking to people who don't agree with me. And finally,
You will learn more by listening to those who you don't agree with than those who agree with you.
like to say that men can be feminists, and they're very important for the feminist movement, for seeking equal rights around the world. And we strive to combat hate, not promote it, for equal rights for all. And by definition, feminism is about the belief in social, economic, and political equality of the sexes, not about female supremacy or anything like that. And I hope to debunk some of the myths that people think about feminists today and show that it is a very important cause, not just globally, but in the US and in the West. Thank you.
All right, Kylie, thank you very much for your opening statement. Andrew, if you'd like to give yours now.
It's Mr. Vegas.
Whoa, Mr. Vegas. Give your day some at MrVegas.com. Whoa, Mr. Vegas.
Yeah, just a second. Let me back up here. There's one thing I wanted to address right in my opening. I've been going through Kylie's videos, and she knows so much which is not so. This is a big bait and switch. This happens often. I think I pointed this out to the Whatever podcast many times, especially when it comes to sociology and psychology, how often they are wrong, and here's how they're wrong most often. What they do is they take studies which are recently published, they point to those data sets and say, because this is right now the most current data set we have, it's true, and then operate as though those things are in reality true when they're not.
See, fucking. I used to love listening to this program because honestly, me and Andrew agree on a lot of things, like near enough everything. But he just uses slurs against disabled people, like the word retard, all the time, and like puts people down for having these mental disabilities as if he's superior because he doesn't have them. But all the smartest humans who ever lived had mental disabilities: autism, bipolar, ADHD, OCD, dyslexia. Like, you name it, they all had it. So Einstein, fucking Isaac Newton, Da Vinci, fucking Stephen Hawking's technically, although his was like not a mental impairment, but a mental disability that caused a physical impairment. But it was still technically a mental disability because his brain didn't allow his body to operate. So and then for the last 300 years. Not once in human history was the smartest person the one with the highest IQ. Like, Einstein did not have the highest IQ. Stephen Hawking did not have the highest IQ. Da Vinci didn't have the highest IQ. Isaac Newton didn't have the highest IQ. Although they had very high IQs, they didn't have the highest IQ of their time. And they were still the smartest. Tesla didn't have the highest IQ. The person who's best at maths has the best IQ, right? That's how it is. That's not the smartest person. But we're now at the point in 2025, people think the person with the highest IQ is the smartest person. How? That's not how it works. The same as Andrew Wilson thinking he's better than other people just because they've got a disability and can use the word retard. It's not right. He's wrong. So, although he's correct most of the time, I had to stop watching this program because I couldn't stand him constantly using the word retard. Like, for him to sit there and constantly use it in a way where he thinks he's better than others because he doesn't have a... No. It's like he was sitting there calling black people the N-word to their face. Like, nah, I couldn't tolerate it. He should be better than that. He's literally a guy who... I think he's qualified as a robotics builder. So he builds robots, basically. Like, mechanical things, animatronics, that sort of stuff. And he's a very intelligent guy. He's a very good debater. Like, if there's one person on the planet I think could give me a run for my money in a debate, it's him. Quite easily. He'd probably beat me in most subjects, but I think I'd give him a good run on religion. But anyway, so that's why I stopped watching this, because I can't stand the way he treats some people. Because regardless of his intelligence, the way he sometimes goes on is ridiculous, but sometimes the way he gets treated is ridiculous, and he responds that way. So you kind of only see that side of it. I don't see him in the real world living his normal life, so I can't really judge. But that's my only problem with Andrew Wilson, is the slurs he uses against other people. There was once a program where, Wes Watson tried to start on him because he's like smaller than Wes, and like he was trying to say how family was the real success for a man, and I loved that. It was great. And Wes Watson like stood up and tried to start on him, like, oh, because he's like, thinking money and fame is what it's all about when it's not. And Andrew was just like, not on these words, but I've got a gun. Like, you want to start? And Wes Watson was just like, it was done. It was fucking done. So, although I disagree with Andrew on some of the way he behaves, I agree with most of the things he says, just not the way he goes about it. But that makes me sound like such a woman. It's not what you said, it's how you said it. Makes me sound like such a woman.
Kinsey says, for instance, on gender quotas, according to, and she cites this, and many feminists cite this.
My name is, are you talking about?
The Kinsey study.
Oh, the Kinsey study.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Yeah, the Kinsey study, which you cite, right? And most feminists cite the Kinsey study. That'll
be the wage gap thing.
It's been debunked for years. I don't know why feminists.
Study?
I don't even know that's the wage gap thing. I can just guess from logic that that's what they're talking about. You know what I mean? You can just use logic in life and common sense. You really can.
Continue. Hang on.
Wait,
it's my opening statement.
You'll have a chance to
Yeah.
cross-examine him. Just allow him.
So
I'm
let me walk you through this. Earlier this week, journalist Christopher Brunette flagged a paper in a March 2024 issue of Econ Journal Watch, a biannual publication edited by George Mason economist Daniel Klein, that publishes articles, links, responses to other economist errors. The paper, written by accounting professor Jeremiah Green of Texas A&M and John R. M. Hand of the University of North Carolina, addressed the first of three McKinsey four-installment series of
Do you not find that a lot of scientists overanalyze and overword things? Like, what they're trying to say is they didn't include all the variables in their equation. So although the figure is correct, the reason for that figure is not clear and is kind of hidden. And it gives a false idea that women are somehow oppressed and paid less when it's not really that way. Women are paid exactly the same as men. It is just that because when men tend to work longer hours and women tend to be off more because of pregnancy and stuff like that, you get this disparity or difference. So if you can't explain something simply, you don't understand it. So when I hear all these Americans using very elaborate wording to explain a simple thing, like they didn't include all the variables, so it makes it seem like it's not something. It makes it seem like something that it's not. That's how you explain it. It's been made to seem like something it's not. It's a false front, so to speak. But yeah, you don't need to use really big, long, extravagant paragraphs to explain something. If you can explain it really quickly and simply, you understand it better.
Diversity studies. Green and Hand sought to test the replicability of McKinsey's findings. Guess what they found, guys? Could another set of researchers using the same data come to the same conclusions? Since McKinsey refused to...
I'm sorry, right, but he sat and listened to her on the whole time she was, doing her opening statement, and she just started going on her phone, probably messaging her friend, like, oh yeah, I'm on the podcast, Andrew won't shut up. That's really rude. I kick off with politicians when they do this in Parliament as well. Just show some fucking respect. Listen to the person who's speaking. That's he listened to her, he was taking notes, but he sat there listening. Why couldn't she return the same fucking courtesy?
To turn over its numbers. Green and Hand had to reverse engineer the firm's 2015, 18, and 20 data sets. The results were startling. Green and Hand couldn't replicate the results of McKinsey's first three studies, which monitored the profitability of the executive demographics of an undisclosed group.
She's already trying to move on to her next point about how, she's right and he's wrong, without even listening to him.
Of S&P 500 firms claiming to have found a positive correlation between diverse leadership and the firm's performance. We do not find a statistical significant positive correlation between McKinsey's measures of the racial ethnic diversity of executive terms of firms as measured in December 2019, Green and Hand reported, and either the likelihood of financial outperformance in 15-19. So to give you a quick summary, the study seems to show its most likely correlation and not causation, meaning companies were already doing very financially well, and they have the luxury to mess around with diversity quotas and initiatives. In addition, the data from the 2024 paper was unable to replicate any of the older McKinsey studies, any of them. That should tell you something. So That's a very recent data set, right? Why don't any of the psychologists ever go with the recent data set? Well, the reason they don't go with it...
They go with whatever suits them. Psychologists literally will always go with what suits them and backs up their argument because they have delusions of grandeur that they know the human brain better than everyone else because they read a book about it.
Is because it doesn't affirm their nonsensical worldviews. That's why they don't go with them, ever. You'll find this very common...
See what I mean? Me and him we just agree. We just agree. Why can't he just not use the word retard? Because otherwise I'd be his best friend.
In sociology and in psychology, which suffer from the replication crisis, somewhere around 60% of their findings cannot be replicated, are not to be trusted. Psychology is the study of the mind. The scientific views of psychology are only done through data collection, but it has to be interpreted. This is a major, major problem.
Actually, psychology can only be interpreted by those who are not crazy, but by those who are already mentally unwell. You can assess your own psychology. You can assess your own psychology and apply your understanding to others. But if you don't ever assess your own psychology, you only ever assess others, you actually lack the ability to assess people correctly because you're going from the interpreted point of view, as they state, rather than the experienced, personally understanding. And that's the biggest mistake most psychologists fall for, is they don't consider themselves as actually experts in psycho. You know how we've got psychos in the world? Psychologists are experts in psychos. That's what they are. They're not experts in human brains. That's a neuroscientist and like a brain surgeon, basically. They're not experts in brains. They're experts in understanding psychos. And they're there to give therapy to psychos. Okay? That's what psychotherapy is. Therapy for psychos.
So many feminists will tell you so many studies, and luckily I have all of the ones to refute all of my opponent.
But you'd have to be quite a psycho to want to be a psychologist in the first place. That's the crazy thing. I didn't intend that to be a pun, but I'm going to stick it in. No, I'm stick with it.
Studies today. Because what happens is they have a biased worldview and they want the data set to correlate with the worldview rather than wanting to tell you what the actual truth is. The truth is that a bunch of S&P 500 companies who are very rich were already doing really well. And for the purposes of publicity, they decided that they were going to start doing a bunch of DEI hires and ethnic hires and this type of thing. And they decided that the correlation, they made it the correlation causation error. That's it. You'll find this over and over again, I'm sure, as we go through this debate, as we go through the numbers, especially when it comes to the abuse of women, especially when it...
She, I can already tell, is very, very disrespectful and rude. Like, she just rolled her eyes there. She's not paying attention. She was on her phone. Like, she literally has shown no respect for Andrew Wilson, which, I mean, I can understand a lot of women won't because the way he's seen speaking to some of them on video, but you only see these small clippets of Andrew Wilson. You don't, it's really unfair to compare him when people are harassing him and he has to harass them back. If that's the only thing you see, so then you don't respect him, that's just sad. But, like, she's debating him. Like, I don't care who you are. If you're in a fight or a debate, you kind of have to show your opponent a certain level of decency or respect. This level just shows, well, immaturity, to be honest. Immaturity.
Comes to just how useful women are. We talk about domesticated labor. What a joke. You believe that women should be paid some type of domestic wage, however, skilled labor in the home, which keeps the home running. So
if women get paid a domestic wage, then men should get paid a security fee, which would be what? Racketeering, basically. That's what is she's suggesting, a racketeering ring for laundry and the dishes. Is she serious?
He's going to be paid way more than domestic labor because it's more worthwhile than domestic labor. Simple. So with that, I'll finish my opening statement. I can't wait to dive right into this.
I'm looking forward.
Okay, so Kylie, it sounded like you maybe had some some pushback you wanted to give on something Andrew said there?
Yeah, so I very briefly referenced the McKinsey study and McKinsey and Company's Women in the Workplace study.
It was the basis of her entire opening statement. Don't fuck it. Slightly mentioned it. Fuck off.
By the way, is what he's referring to. But it's actually, if you go and look it up, it's generally considered accurate and comprehensive in its findings. So I have quite...
It is reasonably accurate, but the variables as to why those are the reasons is not apparent.
Literally no idea what my opponent is talking about, as well as the fact that this is a red herring fallacy of just, oh, this is wrong and my opponent is wrong for the following reasons.
How's that a red herring?
Because you're not actually acknowledging any of the information that I said.
I refuted the information.
I didn't even hardly talk about that.
I have refutations to your video. Okay. I have your video right here. And you start by saying the largest comprehensive study, the Kinsey study.
Which one are you talking about?
I'll play it for you.
Join the action.
No adverts. No! Not at the moment. YouTube really pisses me off.
Give me a second here.
Okay, well, I think we should stick to what we're talking about today.
We're talking about all of this today, so...
Yeah, if someone was going to bring up a video that was going to prove me wrong, I would try and focus on something else as well.
Well, I would like you to be less hostile to me, first of all, because
Hostile? At what moment has he been hostile? Did I miss something?
What are you talking about?
I'll play it for you. Give me a second here.
Okay, well, I think we should stick to what we're talking about today.
We're talking about all of this today, so
I would like you to be less hostile.
Okay. She claims to have a degree in psychology, but she's just gaslit him with a false accusation of him being hostile when he was not being hostile, in an attempt to make him hostile so that she can say he was hostile and show that as the proof. You do understand this, right? I'm not the only human out here who gets this stuff. Am I not? Like, you other men see this, right?
Me, first of all, because I think we should just have a general discussion.
Stop whining. We're doing a debate.
Stop.
See, it worked, because he said stop whining. But you know the thing about Andrew, he's got 3 daughters, so he puts up with this kind of shit all the time. But it worked, and that's why she's smirking.
So,
I'm not going to give you the reaction that I know you're looking for.
Yeah, so
that's projection. She's self-projecting her own brain onto him. Women do this a lot. Hell of a lot.
Women are better leaders than most. You agree?
Yes. I was looking at that video, yeah.
Yeah.
That's like one of the ones that...
And you cite which study?
Oh, yeah, the one that I'm talking about now. But I didn't reference that in my opening at all.
Do you know what it is? People sometimes really forget context, so it depends. I can certainly imagine that females in certain situations make better leaders than men, but it depends what you're talking about. Like, if you're talking about an army, no. Definitely not. I'm sorry. There's no female on the planet can run an army better than the best man. Not a fucking chance in the world. But if you're talking about maybe like a charity or a school, maybe, or I mean even a university, you know, yeah, sure. Because women have this expertise in understanding human emotion thanks to their excessive estrogen compared to men. We have excessive testosterone compared to women, so emotions are not that much to us. We don't feel emotions as much as women. Well, it doesn't burden us as much, shall we say. We still feel the same. We just don't. It doesn't bother us that much, you know. But that's the point, though. You see, like over the last 100,000 years, men have had a monopoly and a advantage physically because we are physically bigger and stronger, and we think differently. Although men and women both have logic, both are intelligent, because women's estrogen makes them feel things more, shall we say, or have stronger emotions, it means that it disrupts their ability to think without emotion. Because if you have a more intensity of emotion, it makes it more difficult to ignore it, right? So, without sounding very sexist and misogynistic, a lot of women, as intelligent as they are not as good on average as the average male when it comes to stopping their emotions getting in the way of what they think. So if you remove emotions from all women, they'd essentially be no different to most men. And if you remove the emotion from men as well, of course, we'd be exactly the same. It's only the excessive estrogen that makes women have this intensity with emotion that causes them to essentially think differently to men. You can say that it's, less logic as a man, I would, but that would be sexist and misogynist, I guess, to say that. But realistically, if you get distracted from your beliefs and things you think because of emotion, that is illogical. Just watch Star Trek and ask fucking, what's his face? Technically, emotion is illogical, technically. I'm not an expert on emotion. Women are. This is my point. So women over the millennia have developed this skill set with emotion that is far and above beyond the average man. The average male's strength is well and above the average female. But the average female's understanding of emotion and the ability to use it as a tool around them is far and above any man on the planet. It's been women's best tool for thousands of years because it was the only tool they had to help themselves, to defend themselves, to keep their children safe. It's all logic, really. So what she is doing is applying those skill sets there to him and to emotionally try and instigate him so that she doesn't appear to be the one in the wrong. She can appear that she's right. It's manipulation at its finest. If she was doing this in a relationship, that would be domestic abuse. And yet she's a psychologist with a degree. But that would be domestic abuse in a relationship.
Also, I think the people in the audience, if they had any sort of common sense following along, they'd be like, what is he talking about? Kylie didn't mention that, which I didn't.
But the thing is this is a...
She's talking a lot quicker. If she was so confident in him being so unsettled, she would just be relaxed and, waiting for him to show himself up. Instead, she's trying to instigate him showing himself up rather than allowing himself to show that he's... Do you know... I feel like I'm going to have to teach the whole world some stuff about humans that you've all forgotten.
Current core part of your worldview and belief, and you make propaganda videos about it, even though it's completely uninformed.
That women are better leaders. I think that is a subjective opinion. None of the statistics and facts that I gave previously are objective opinions. Like the fact that women didn't have the right to vote until 1920. Women couldn't open a bank account in the United States until 1974.
When did men get the right to vote?
Oh, okay, I know this is exactly what you were talking about. This is what you're known for, is getting people on a technicality that we don't historically know. But the answer to that is no. The answer to that
the answer is that's no?
No, the answer to that is the fact that in 1920, everyone was given the right to vote, but there were still barriers to vote for people of color.
When did men get the right to vote?
The right to vote was guaranteed to all people in 1920, according to the 19th Amendment.
Yeah, before 1920, were all men allowed to vote?
No.
Okay, great.
They weren't.
And then even when men's
because
suffrage
of white
was passed...
supremacy and because our system was not founded equally.
Are you aware that men only got any rights to vote about a decade, roughly, before women?
That is not true. Men have been the founding fathers were all men, so I have no idea what you're talking about.
What does that have to do with the right to vote?
Okay. This is the mistake some feminists really make, okay? Not all men are treated as equal, okay? We're not. You see, women like to have this idea of, we're all equal, we're all beautiful, lovely creatures. Men, we're not like that. You've got one at the bottom, one at the top, and the rest in the fucking in between. There's a hierarchy to men. So the only men who were allowed to vote were the men who owned land. That was it. If you were a farmer who worked on that land, you didn't vote. If you were a slave in the house cooking, you didn't work. If you were anything but a lord or a king, you couldn't vote. The only reason a knight could vote was because they were given land with the title. If they weren't given the land, they wouldn't have been allowed to vote. Honestly, some feminists have no clue, do they? No clue. Men only got the right to vote in the 100 years before women. Like, we weren't always allowed to vote. It's bullshit. Absolute bullshit.
The right to vote was historically withheld from men of color. It was a
It was also
It's still withheld from prisoners, to be fair. And other people, like...
withheld from
Listen to
the
me.
general
Do
population.
not cut me off. Do not cut me off. I am in the middle of speaking.
I don't care if you're in the middle of speaking. You're in the middle of a debate.
The right to vote.
You don't have your TikTok mute button, sweetheart?
I did check this because this is what drew me to this clip. I saw this on a short on YouTube, and I was like, I saw a comment that's saying actually Andrew interrupted her first, and I checked, and he did interrupt her. To be fair, watch. I don't see him interrupting her. Her interrupting him. He interrupts her. Watch.
No.
From
Listen to
the
me.
general
Do
population.
not cut me off. The founding fathers were all men, so I have no idea what you're talking
What
about.
does that have to do with the right to vote?
The right to vote was historically withheld from men of color. It was a white...
It was also withheld from...
Listen.
See? He interrupted her. But I'm the same. I think Andrew has an older sibling who used to do the same as my older twin siblings, right? And lie about things he did, which forces him out of obsessive compulsive disorder to correct people when they say something wrong to his face as a defense mechanism to avoid child abuse. It sounds stupid, I know, but watch. Like, that's how he's built who I am this way because of that. Like, it's kind of almost built me into the man I am today. I don't tolerate lies. I don't tolerate mistakes. I tolerate mistakes. I don't tolerate lying about mistakes or, you have to be right and correct and true. Otherwise, people get hurt.
the general population.
Do not cut me off. Do not cut me off. I am in the middle of speaking.
But you shouldn't also cut this woman off. She deserves to speak and without being interrupted. But if you're going to say something wrong, I would have interrupted you as well, to be honest. I literally wouldn't be able to help myself. I would not be able to help myself.
I don't care if you're in the middle of speaking. You're in the middle of a debate.
The right to vote.
You don't have your TikTok mute button, sweetheart?
See? And there was no need for that. There's no need for that. The thing is, right, Andrew deals with a lot of nasty women on this show all the time. So then he's applying that experience to this person when, in all fairness, she's been perfectly reasonable and civilized and decent with him. She's not been, well, apart from ignoring him while he was, speaking. But I don't know. Am I just being biased here? Am I missing something? Why can't people just have an adult debate without resorting to this sort of bullshit? Just disagree and then, all right, we disagree. Fine. Move on to the next point.
I will not be speaking anymore until you have a conversation with him.
Well, look, if we can, for both people, if we can allow each other to finish, even if you want to jump in, just let the other person finish speaking. If somebody's going on a monologue and they're filibustering, I'll try to get them to wrap up. But just if they're making a point, just try to let them finish.
No, I did not go to school for 4 years and build a platform to be talked to like this. So I will be walking away from the microphone right now, and I would encourage you to get your guest under control. I'm going to take 2 minutes, so you can ask him questions if you'd like, and I will be right back.
Because you run the show?
I just won't be back. And
in fairness, she did try and trigger him by gaslighting him to make him hostile, and now that he's getting hostile, she's playing the victim. This is a typical play from the Woman's Handbook. I'm sorry. Literally, you just watched the same thing as me. She intentionally gaslit him by claiming he was being hostile when he wasn't. So then when he started acting hostile, which she was trying to cause intentionally, I literally just watched it. And then when he got hostile, played the victim. It's like me walking up to a bear, poking it in the face, and then when it bites me, asking it, why'd you do that? Why'd you bite me, Mr. Bear? I'm going to walk over there until you start behaving, Mr. Bear. Fuck off.
I don't give a shit. What do I care? I'm here to have a debate, not listen to your whining. Do you want to have a debate or not?
all right, I'm not going to be talked to like this.
Well,
so.
do you want to just take a little 2-minute breather? You want to take a 2-minute breather?
This is feminism? You're the strong...
You see, people always say there's two sides to every coin, but that's wrong, you see. I'm going to get a coin and prove it just because I'm an idiot. somewhere. I'm sure I've got a coin somewhere. Never mind. I'll just say it. So, you've got one side of the coin, Andrew's. You've got the other side of the coin, her side. And everyone thinks, it's 2 sides to every coin. No, there is 3 sides to every coin at least, because you've got the neutral perspective of both sides. I don't know that man and this woman. I know I've got a slight problem with feminists who hate on men, but I want females to have equal rights. You know, I've got a mother, I've got a sister, I've got a daughter. But also, Andrew is right, but he's also wrong at the same time. But his behaviour isn't out of order. She asked for this behaviour and then played victim when it was given. Like...
Strong woman? You're the strong woman? Really? Whew, strong woman. I will not be talked to. Like what? What did I even say?
Apart from being, like, slightly dickish by trying to be funny, he didn't really do anything wrong. He did exactly what she asked him to do and tried to get him to do and then played victim.
You know, I would...
I will not be talked to like that. Yeah, you will. What are you talking about? It's a debate.
Can't believe this is 3 hours long. There's no way I'm watching the whole thing.
Maybe we can try to stick to...
There's been some really strong feminist women in that chair who have debated with me. Just not this one.
Yeah. Although I think maybe for the...
Maybe she was crying, overwhelmed, wanted to cry off camera, and then came back. I'll be able to tell from her face if her makeup's running.
The sake of ensuring that the debate happens...
Details, boys. Details. The devil is in the details. It always is.
Maybe we can... just so we get the debate... So the debate happens, you know, maybe...
Well, what am I supposed to do? I'm in the middle of...
Brian's the owner of this show, right? He runs the show. He's the podcast host. And, like, Andrew Wilson is a guest, okay? So Brian's sitting here, like, bro, we've got 4 hours of work scheduled, and if she doesn't do this show, like, the whole show's cancelled, and you've just wasted my fucking day. Like, he's looking at him like, you absolute prick. Come on. Just be nice. Please, be nice. Look at him.
of a debate. Am I supposed to worry about tone policing and this and that because I have points and refutations which may hurt people's feelings?
Well, I think she overreacted a little bit, but...
I agree.
I think it is fair to allow...
then time it.
If she's in the middle
He shouldn't have interrupted her. That is a perfectly reasonable point.
of...
Yeah, time it. Give us 60 seconds apiece.
Yeah, we could do that.
Yeah.
I'll propose that to her.
Just do 60
But
seconds.
I mean, I'm fine with keeping it open, but just if you're talking, and she interrupts you, I'll tell her not to. Mm-hmm. But if you can, just try to let her finish.
Yeah, but when anybody does the bullshit of like, I'm speaking, you know what I mean? Of course, there's going to be some.
Yeah, but try to let her finish if you can. But
Yeah, let's do 60-second back and forth.
That's fine with me,
Oh,
as
you
long
wanna
as there's some
do-
boundaries. Yeah,
You want to do that? 60 seconds back
sure.
and forth?
That works.
Or if you guys want, we could give it another shot at just keeping it open combo.
Sure.
So why don't we do that? If the interruptions continue, you guys feel like you're not.
But I would like to just point out that...
Wait. We have to set the rules first. No more talking. Yes.
Hold on. Let's watch that again.
You guys feel like you're not.
But I would like to just point out that...
Wait. We have to set the.
She just interrupted him. That nearly just gave me an aneurysm, I swear to God. She's just stormed off the stage, the show, because he interrupted her and got upset about it, which is fine, you know, shouldn't remember. And then she's come back and interrupted him. So now she's a hypocrite. if she hadn't have done that, she would have had some moral high ground. But because she did that, now she's no better than him.
Rules first, no more talking. Yes, we will do 60 seconds
Like,
back
I'm
and
supposed
forth.
to be talked to like that, though, right?
No, 60 seconds back and forth, or I will leave. I'm so serious. We signed an agreement. If I
I'm super serious, guys. I'm so super serious.
You can leave. I don't care.
We
Why do you think I care if you
I'm
fucking
not
leave?
talking to you.
Hold on, guys.
I'm not
guys,
talking
guys.
to you.
Okay.
I'm talking.
Go ahead. What's your proposal?
My proposal, if we don't do 60 seconds back and forth, I will walk out right now. The agreement was that I appear. It does not say that I have to stay for 3 hours, so I will leave right now. Because I'm not going to be talking.
Translation, I get paid even if I leave because the contract said appearance, not timescale. Which she is actually correct. But that's not Brian's fault. Like, it's a bit harsh on him, really. Do you know what I mean? Like, I sometimes felt sorry for Brian when I used to watch this because he's just stuck in the middle sometimes between all these people arguing. And although he's the one raking in the money, he's got to put up with a lot of shit for it. So I guess he's well rewarded. I don't feel sorry for you, Brian. Get more Dragon Ball Z stuff. Looks cool.
Talk to like this. I
Like
mean,
what? What?
real men.
A real?
don't
You're
talk
going to tell me what a
women
real
like
man
this.
is?
Well, Andrew.
My
I bet you, right, if Andrew had only one daughter instead of 3, I bet you he would talk to women very differently to the way he does.
dad.
Real women don't abort their children, lady.
My dad has the same political.
Ooh, that's a low blow, that is, Andrew. That's a low blow. It's hard to disagree with him, though.
Beliefs as you, and he would never talk to a woman
And my
like that.
sister
You
has
are
the same political
embarrassing.
beliefs as you, and she would never
you
dare
guys-
talk to a
look,
man like
guys,
that.
guys,
Like, what's your
hold on.
point?
Can
That
you both
makes no
stop?
sense.
Andrew, can you stop?
Andrew,
In
that's really
furtherance-
Oh, God. Everything's disrespectful.
Andrew, stop.
You're such a crybaby.
Hold on. Andrew, stop. In furtherance of ensuring that this
That was me cringing, by the way. I actually just cringed at the way these two are behaving. Like, these two are supposed to be really intelligent human beings. She's got a degree in psychology. He's like an expert in robotics and building animatronics and things. And he's like an expert debater. She was obviously a debater in high school, you know, on the debate school or did debate class, whatever. Because they teach you how to debate in America, but they don't teach you the facts to debate with. So I actually just cringed at that. It was goddamn embarrassing. Funny, but embarrassing.
debate actually occurs, let's set some ground rules. You got to allow people to finish their points. And Andrew, maybe you've said some mocking things towards her.
No, I have not mocked him at all.
Look,
No. I've stood up for myself.
I need to be.
I can't recall her mocking him. I can recall her being disrespectful and rude, abrasive, but not mocking him. Let's get pedantic here.
And I will not be mocked. I have not said a word that is bad to you.
Stop mocking me!
I talked to you about your family in Michigan. I want to get to know you. This isn't about anything about me mocking you. This is a boundary
I'm
of
here
him
to get to
attacking
know
me.
you. I'm here
Look.
to do a debate.
Look, when you return to the table,
Stop mocking me!
you did the tone. Your tone wasn't the best towards Andrew. And look.
My
I'm
tone?
hold on.
Oh,
I'll
wow.
be fair. Hold on.
Honestly, her tone since he started speaking was awful. She went straight on her phone, started rolling her eyes. Like, she's on the defensive because she knows that all of her points can be refuted, and she's just here to try her best, really, and obviously get the appearance, get the attention. She knows she can't win the debate now, realistically, surely.
Kylie, I'll be
That's
fair.
classic.
Andrew's tone towards you wasn't great either. In furtherance of ensuring that the debate actually occurs, why don't we just get back to it and stick to the substance of the conversation?
Okay.
I'm trying to be fair to both of you.
But 60 seconds each, yeah? No interruptions?
Andrew, if you agree, if you're fine with that, then I'm
Okay.
fine with that. So we'll.
Great.
And if you guys are open to it, if that goes well, the 60 seconds each, we can bring it back to open conversation.
Okay.
Well, there does have to be some cross-examination at some point, but yeah, that's fine.
Sure. Okay. So Kylie, go ahead. You have 60.
I don't think she was crying. I think she was on the brink of crying, stopped herself from crying. Doesn't look like she was crying.
seconds.
Okay, so the point of my conversation here is I would genuinely like to have an open discussion about like what feminism means and to debunk some of the feminist myths, but my opponent seems to want to attack me instead. And
I would like to state that feminism is the pursuit of equal rights to men and to be treated equally as men are treated. That's it. But if you're not gonna like treat men as equal, how is that even possible? Like, if a feminist doesn't treat a man as equal to her and thinks men are beneath her, because they're a misogynist, like, member of the patriarchy, fucking enforcer of evil, then how could we ever be equal? It's impossible unless you view us as equal.
call me names, which is totally okay. I'm used to that, especially if you look at my comments online. But the point being, I'm going to try my best to keep it very mellow. Again, if I'm being attacked, I am going to get defensive. But I would like to start by saying, yes, the McKinsey study in sociology, psychology studies are flawed, and that is true. They are continually, it's a field that's expanding, and that's why I chose to study psychology, because I do find it so interesting. But that doesn't negate the fact that plenty of studies have found a significant correlation between being a woman and being a victim of violence at the hands of a man. And again, the study of 1 in 3 women globally who experience sexual or physical violence. And I think that is the core of what a lot of feminists believe in, is trying to combat that violent behavior and to protect women. I'm sure that's
right, but feminism is not about stopping male violence against women. That is literally not what feminism is. I will literally get you the definition of fucking feminism on here, like. The belief in social, economic, and political equality of the sexes. Look. Can I full screen that? Oh, right there. No, it's not gonna work. So I can't really show you. It's not working because it's right there. Oh, bollocks! I just closed the tab. Shit. So like,
because I do find it so interesting, but
it is not. That is literally not what feminism is. This is like, Americans keep getting taught things that are wrong. So in their education system in the last 10 years, they taught a lot of people that racism means you have to have the power to enforce it. So they started getting the idea that white people can't suffer racism because the white people are the majority in the USA and black people the minority. And so because black people are the minority, they don't have the power to enforce racism on white people. So they can't be racist. You can't be racist to white people. And this whole feminism thing is bullshit. Feminism is not about stopping male violence against women. That is not what feminism is. Feminism is about equal rights to men and about being treated equally as a man. That is feminism. What are they teaching these people in? How does she have a degree in university, studied psychology, and is a feminist, but doesn't know what feminism is? Am I on planet Earth here? Like, is this? What planet is this? What's going on? Am I just stupid? Am I just? I hate how everyone always tells me I twist things into the way they aren't. When I just see things differently, and I see this is as bullshit, that's wrong. Now, I am all for stopping male violence against women, right? In fact, I'd do anything to try and help. But feminism is not that. That is utter delusion, is what that is.
That doesn't negate the fact that plenty of studies have found a significant correlation.
That's like saying bricklaying is plumbing. Fucking no, it's not.
Between being a woman and being a victim of violence at the hands of a man. And again, the study of 1 in 3 women globally who experience sexual or physical violence. And I think that is the core of what a lot of feminists believe in, is trying to combat that violent behavior and to protect women. I'm sure that's close to a minute, so I can pass it over
Yeah,
to
so
you.
Feminism has completely lied to everybody, and I'll explain exactly how. It failed in its promise. Its promise was that it was supposed to protect women. It hasn't protected women. The very idea that you want to put women inside of male workforces is not protecting women. The idea that you want to have dual colleges where it's men and women together is not protecting women. These are terrible ideas, and they've been borne out as being terrible ideas.
Disagree with Andrew Wilson there. Feminism has not lied to women in that regard, because what feminism has done has allowed women to defend themselves. So a woman can vote for whatever leader she wants. She can own her own house. She can have her own job, her own kids, no man in the house, and she can pay for whatever she wants, right? She can pay for others to defend her. She doesn't need a man to take care of her like a fucking farm has animals, right? So feminism has been a success. I see feminism as being one of the greatest successes of the modern age. But it's done. The only places it's not done is other countries. But in my country, it's fucking done. Women have superior rights. So feminism is finished, because that's why it was created. That's what its purpose was. You can't now change the purpose of feminism, that it means stopping violence against women, so that, like, that's not what feminism is. No, I don't accept that. Bullshit. But I don't accept Andrew Wilson there. Like, feminism didn't lie to women, because if a woman didn't have her own job, didn't have her own way to look after herself, she had to rely on a man, either her father or her husband or her brother. That's how it was, and she couldn't trust anyone else because it was a stranger. And the only reason she trusted them was because they'd be socially shamed for not looking after her, because it was their manly duties to look after her as their father or brother, or you know what I mean? You lot are crazy, honestly. You lot are fucking mental.
When you talk about sociological studies being flawed, I don't think that you're really being honest about how flawed they are. The replication crisis in sociology is getting worse, not better. It's not getting better. Even with all the meta-analysis, it's not getting better. Why isn't it getting better? It's because of bias. There's so much bias which is going on, especially from the purview of feminists. And feminists use standpoint theory. They want everything to go through the view of women. So when you're talking about, for instance, the criteria, when you're talking about what that means that women are assaulted, right? What is the criteria for that, for what an assault actually is?
That's a really good question. We are definitely working on defining the lines for that. So right now, there's an acronym that we are coming up with that we want to teach in schools of what that means, which is
Oh yeah, a fucking acronym. That'll solve all of our problems, won't it? Fucking hell, lads. We just need more acronyms.
FRIES, so freely given, reversible, informed, enthusiastic, or engaged in specific of what consent means, so that there is no confusion about what is happening in terms of, whether it's an assault. Because I know that does happen where men
I think this is definitely going to be my longest video.
Are confused and they don't know, and especially if there's alcohol involved. And so my goal is to protect women, and also to make sure that men know that if they are causing harm, a lot of men, they don't want to hurt other people. They don't realize it. And so I think if we have better...
Do you know what it is? That there's literally some men in prison who never wanted to hurt anyone in their lives, but they just couldn't control themselves. They have control issues, but they never actually wanted to hurt anyone, and as soon as they did hurt someone, they regretted it. But there's also women who have done the same thing. There are women who have made men raise children that are not theirs, and made them waste their entire lives on a lie. But I bet you she doesn't mention the evil women.
Their education about what assault is and how to prevent it, because again, there are male victims. So I think if it's something that we can come forward about and make sure that everyone feels...
Damn it! She proved me wrong again. It's twice she's done that in the same video. Do you know what it is? That's one thing you'll learn as a human. If you admit when you're wrong, you'll improve much faster. Whereas if you never admit, you'll just end up... If I was not able to admit I was wrong, I would just end up insulting her or trying to find some way to cope with how I was right and she was wrong and she's just an idiot and she doesn't know what she's talking about. And truth is, I was wrong. She did mention male victims. Easy. I was wrong. It's that simple, lads. It's that simple. I was wrong.
heard and supported, then men would also come forward more about like if they've been assaulted.
This doesn't answer my question.
I was indecently assaulted when I was younger, right? I'll not get into it. So, one of the reasons I came out about it and told people what happened was no men really talk about what happens to us in that regard. We just don't do it, right? So, I couldn't expect men to do that unless I was willing to do it myself. So, I did it myself. You can't expect others to do something you're not willing to do yourself. Realistically, that's logic.
No, my question is, when you cite the data on how many of these women have actually been assaulted, what is the criteria being used?
That's a good question. I see your point of how it varies, like based upon the study and things like that. But I think a lot of these problem is that it is self-reported. But again, another issue is that means they could be underreported as well because women are too scared to report it. So yes, there are issues with that.
Also, you've got the ones who wrongly report it. There has been so many cases where women have ruined men's lives where they didn't do anything wrong, and it was proved later on they've not done anything wrong, and then the woman's never punished, but the man's lost like years of their life in a fucking prison or something. It's ridiculous.
But another thing, though, is that women are definitely in a position in the home where they are not safe in a lot of places. And again, that comes back to the kind of assumption that I was talking about earlier, is that like it's because we married the wrong man and this guy is unsafe in our home. But it's not about that. It's sometimes when you marry somebody or you date somebody, they can then become violent towards you because they see you as their property almost.
Most of these domestic violence claims and things like this are happening from single mothers with boyfriends, though, not happening from the father at home.
Do you have a
married
source
relationships.
for that?
Yes, I do.
Okay. No, I'm just wondering because...
It's one of the few times where someone goes, have you got a source for that? And he's like, yes, I do. Yes, I do. He was ready for that. He was fucking ready.
Yeah.
Not only is that factually the case, but interestingly enough, if the state seizes custody of a child inside of an abusive home, the child's actually more likely at the hands of the state to die than they are in the hands of the abusive home, which is insane, but true.
I think...
Now, let me give you the studies that you're talking about here.
He means like kids who get removed from an abusive household, say like parents who are alcoholics or meth heads, whatever, and they get put in the hands of the state, so like, orphanages and church-run charities and things like this. So you're more likely to die in the care of the American state than you are in a domestic abusive household, according to that study.
Okay.
Okay.
Are these the studies about which claims that you said?
Yeah, so here we're going to start with the National Incidence Study, NIS. It's the largest collection of all types reporting data relating to abuse and maltreatment of children. Okay? 68% of maltreated children were maltreated by a female, whereas 48% were maltreated by a male. Some children were maltreated by both. Of children maltreated by biological parents, mothers maltreated the majority, 75% were...
I would like to point out that the reason why more children suffer abuse from females in care than males would be because there's more females who look after children than men. Most likely. I don't think it's because women are more likely to hurt children than men. I think it's just because they look after children more than men, so there's more often cases reported of it than there is men. This is what I mean. If you look at a statistic on the surface, it looks great. But when you actually delve into the variables of why it is that way, it stops looking so easy, if that makes sense.
Fathers maltreated a sizable majority, 43%. In contrast, male perpetrators were more common for children maltreated by non-biological parents or parents' partners, 64% or 75%. Safest place you can possibly be in the home is with your husband and with your children. That's for women, the safest place they can be.
A good husband, sure.
Study that you pull up is going to be drawing from the NIS source. That's direct from the NIS itself. There's no refuting that. I've looked and looked and looked. It is definitely from partner incident violence. Women are the safest when they have a husband in the home.
I think for some women that is the case. I think there are good men out there, and I think that's a misconception that feminists don't believe in that there are.
Damn it, she keeps fucking saying things that are correct. I was really hoping she was going to be this idiot feminist who had no clue, and she has said some things that I think are complete bullshit, but She has said more correct things than I've ever seen any female on this show so far. So credit to her for that. Most women on this show I've ever seen were like OnlyFans workers, some fucking Instagram woman who, tries to get attention all day long, like these sorts of girls. So to actually see some woman who has a reasonable understanding of the subject is refreshing, to say the least.
Good men, that we hate all men, which definitely isn't true. But I would like to say, because you're saying, psychology is an evolving field, there are different studies and different numbers. Male perpetrators are predominant, and while the exact percentage differs, it's generally estimated that between 75 and 90% of child sexual abuse is committed by men or male adolescents.
Nope.
What was that?
Estimated that between male perpetrators are predominant, and while the exact percentage differs, it's generally
While the exact percentage differs.
estimated that between 75 and 90% of child sexual abuse predominant, and while the exact percentage differs, it's generally estimated that between 75 and 90% of child
75 and 90% of child sexual abuse is committed by males. I don't think that's an unreasonable statistic. I think 90% is unreasonable, but the 75 doesn't seem unreasonable, to be honest.
child sexual abuse is committed by men or male adolescents.
Nope.
Yes.
That's because it's not drawing from the correct data set, which would be the NIS.
But
and the
how
reason
could
they
you
do
have
that
the
is
authority
because,
to say which one is the correct data set?
because
though?
they all draw from the NIS. All of them draw from this data set, the NIS. They have to. It's the most comprehensive source for reporting. So here's what happens. If you want to
That'll be the United States national statistics that they do. Like you have a general consensus each year, and they use that consensus to do lots of studies and data analysis, and they'll be using that same data pool and interpreting it differently.
to gather data, you're a psychologist.
Are you seriously explaining to me how it works to gather data?
No, I'm asking you a question.
Oh,
If
okay.
you wanted to gather data,
Yes.
right? If you want, especially on crimes, you would use law enforcement or the best source for reporting, right? In this case, self-reporting is going to be far less reliable than reports to the police, things like this, right?
Yes, understandable. So you're saying that this is the most comprehensive, therefore the most reliable source.
It's the most comprehensive source.
But where are you finding
on
that
which-
it is the most comprehensive? Because you haven't mentioned a source that says it is, because I'm looking at it now.
The
and
NIS?
That's not from the NIS. There's the national...
It's from the NIS.
You're not going to believe what happened.
The National Institute of Surveys. That'll be something like that, Acronyms. Woo!
From the NIS. Let
There's
me
the
read it to you
National
again.
Center for Victims of Crime in RAIN, which is the statistics that I just
Rain
pulled
draws
up.
from the NIS.
Okay, so then how come it draws from the same source? And my conclusion is different than yours.
Because they changed the criteria for what is considered assault, and they changed the criteria. Like, I've seen it as bad as them saying that men cannot be essayed by women because it's non-penetrative.
I see. So you're saying
That is not true. A woman could force feed a man Viagra against his consent and then force him to penetrate her. That is bullshit. That's a lie.
that would skew the numbers.
It does skew the numbers. So the results of the National Incident Study, NIS, the largest collection of all types of reported data related to abuse and maltreatment, 68% of maltreated children were maltreated by a female, 48% maltreated by a male.
Mm-hmm.
Women, when they're in positions of power over people who are weaker than them, actually abuse more than men do. So at the same time, while you say, well, women have to run this big gambit of threats from men because men are much stronger than women and have more propensity of violence, when women are in charge of people who are inferior in strength to them, their incidences of violence towards them are much higher than men's incidences of violence towards them.
That's
It
quite the
sounds like women
conclusion.
are the greater threat here than men.
Sure. If you want to...
I wouldn't consider women a greater threat than men. I think we have different threats to each other. Women pose a lot of emotional and mental threats, and men pose a lot of physical and mental threats. We both pose a lot of mental threats.
say that's totally your prerogative, but that's not what the numbers say. So you can say, no, it's my turn.
Do you know what it is? I've just realised. It actually turns out that I'm the voice of balance in this. You've got misogyny on one side, misandry on the other, and then you've got me, balance in the middle, who's a little bit of a misogynist and a little bit of a feminist, a little bit of a misandrist and a little bit of a, chauvinist.
to speak. You can say what you want about all the different statistics and how they come from a specific study, but the point is that there are different estimates, and basically every study conducted globally has found that the number of female victims is astronomically higher than male victims. Not to say male victims aren't important. If you are a male victim, especially if you haven't spoken up, I have seen the effects of having male sexual assault in my family, so please talk to somebody. It is serious. But 1 in 6 boys have been sexually assaulted, and a lot of the time it is by male offenders.
Yeah,
so it is
but
serious.
what about the fact that when we're talking about outrages of abuse of children, women are the ones who are most often in charge of children. The domestic rates, for instance, inside of a boys' home where the prison guards are all male, and it's a male, youth population versus female. If there's a females in charge of the youth population, the statistics for abuse skyrocket. Same thing inside of public schools.
Are you saying that women are more likely to be
women are more likely than men when it comes to the weaker sex. In this case, children. We would just say children are both sexes, right?
They've mentioned a few times. Well, she's mentioned a phenomenon. Phenomenon. Boop, 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 phenomenon. So in this case, the reason why there is more female teachers who get charged with sexual crimes against children is because, one, there's more women who look after children, but two, you'll tend to find it's always this young teacher who's hit the wall. That age bracket of 25 to 32, where they haven't had a child yet, and they haven't met the man who they want to have a child with, and they start getting desperate. And some of them jump a 15-year-old in their class who they teach and try and get pregnant from them. And that's what they do. That's what them women are doing. And they are paedophiles, yes. They're paedophiles who are trying to get pregnant from a child, essentially, yes.
But they're the weaker human than women. When they're in charge of children, they actually...
But that's the reason why.
Abuse them far more than what men abuse women at. And so it's so who's really the dangerous ones here?
I mean...
Your 60 seconds begins. Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I would like to say that is a claim that is a reasonable conclusion that you are drawing from the data that you are presenting. Unfortunately, that is not true, though. That the vast majority of sex offenders are male, and especially when there are still female offenders, and that is still bad. But the point is,
I don't think anyone in the world can really suggest that men aren't probably the more prolific sex offenders, if that makes sense. I don't think it's such a difference as 90%, 10%, or even 80-20, 70-30. But 60%, 40%? If you took the entire population of planet Earth sex offenders and put them in one place, I could easily believe that 60% of them are male and 40% female. 70% male and 30% female, it's unrealistic. It's unrealistic. But it's possible still. Do you know what I mean? So, the statistics these people are talking about is only the United States, and it's only the people who actually answered the survey that went out. It's not everyone in the United States. It's not everyone in America. It's certainly not the world. It's just their local area, so to speak, if that makes sense.
That there is significant male dominance and that most sex offenders are male, and females do commit sex crimes, but they're often underrepresented as perpetrators. So you're correct. But
hold on. Data you're reporting, is it?
Do you want to continue?
Yes, please. And so
I'll give you your 60.
This is.
I was once walking through a shopping mall, and a group of girls walked past, 4 of them, and said "nice arse" and slapped my arse. That was a sexual assault in the middle of a shopping centre, in front of hundreds of people. No one batted an eyelid, and I was expected to be grateful that these women had sexually assaulted me. Well, these girls had sexually assaulted me, right? So you can't sit there and say shit like, "Oh, men don't suffer these crimes." If you're out there, I know these two haven't, but trust me, we do suffer these exact same things as women, just probably not as frequently. That's probably all it is. You know, we still have the exact same issues. From
the United States Commission sentencing, which is just about sexual abuse offenders. And there's a whole pie chart here, about how many times they offend and who they offend and who they're under guidance for. And again, it is saying that the vast majority, up to 80% of the perpetrators are men.
Yeah,
But yeah, you can talk now.
Join 32 Red and get a welcome bonus up to £150. Play incredible.
So, women, do you agree with me that I have to ask some questions here so I can figure some things out? I hope that you'll answer them. So, do you agree with me that both men and women have the propensity to, in some way, essay the other partner, both of them?
Yeah, I wouldn't say that it's, no, yes, I agree. It is definitely possible for both sexes to do that.
The question becomes, if you switch criteria around, right, for what is considered sexual assault, let's just assume things like catcalling are put in the category.
That's harassment. But are you saying hypothetically?
But let's say it's categorized, not as harassment, but as a form of sexual abuse. Would you say that would greatly skew the numbers?
If that were how it was classified, yes. Do you have evidence that is how it is classified?
I do. In fact, there's a whole grouping of colleges in a study that I can show you where that was smuggled in as a form of sexual assault or SA or sexual battery in some cases, right? They smuggle in, and so what they do is they decide that they want to make that data set wider. And so they just reclassify things which would not ordinarily be classified as sexual assault or sexual battery by just inserting those things. Now, the same exact thing happens here. Do you think that it's very masculine, for instance, inside of society, for men to go and report when a woman gives them unwanted touching?
No. And matter of fact, I do know male victims with female perpetrators.
And they have unwanted touching?
Yes.
So they're just far more likely to report it because of the social stigma, which happens to them often from women who tell them things like, I don't consider you a real man like you did to me earlier?
Oh, I didn't really say that, but...
You did. Your exact words were, a real man would X.
Oh, yeah, like...
Wow. This has been a long video, but it's only 30 minutes. This video is 3 hours, 39 minutes long. My recording is at an hour, and so I've been talking a lot. I'll have to try and shut up more.
Like real men.
I literally talk so much, it's ridiculous. Might as well just start a talk show where I just talk non-stop.
Like my dad, who have the same political beliefs, but don't talk to women the way you do.
Yeah, whatever that means. But anyway, so a real man does X, right? Wouldn't you say that the social stigma around the fact that women can kind of get away with the same type of inappropriate touching without men reporting would greatly skew these numbers?
Yes, however, I think that women and men who are victims and are perpetrators as well, I think those are both underreported. I think across the board it's underreported, but more for male victims with female perpetrators.
But how many more for male victims?
I don't know.
But it could be. It could be drastic, right?
And I would hope not.
And if it is drastic, then it would skew your numbers on all of those percentages across the board.
Oh, absolutely, it would. But the problem is we have no way of gathering that data. And with the data we do have, though, I see what you're saying about the stigma, but it is so vastly.
If there's one thing you Americans do that really bugs me, right? I know I'm a British guy, so my accent bugs you as well. But you just hang on the end of every sentence like this. On the end of every sentence like this. She just did it there. She hung. It's most common in your females who talk down to other people in their high schools. You know, we're the bitch.
And with the data we do have, though, I see what you're saying.
With the data we do have.
About the stigma, but it is so vastly that women are victims and men are the perpetrators that I don't see that catching up in any percentage.
Why not?
Like, I just don't understand why Americans. I'm yet to figure out why you just hang on the end of words, because it's not a Native American thing, so you just couldn't have picked it up from Native Americans. So I'm trying to identify where Americans hang the end of their sentences from. So why, at the end of a sentence, does American do that? Does that make sense? I'm trying to figure it out. I like to work stuff out.
It depends on how underreported it is. In fact, a lot of these data sets draw from unreported incidences via estimates, don't they?
Unreported incidences via estimates.
Yes. So
it's almost like a Chinese influence, but the Chinese don't even do it. It just sounds Chinese.
I suppose.
Maybe it's because I did it. It sounds Chinese.
Yeah, there's no way that they can actually gather that data. Yeah.
Oh, I hope the Chinese don't kill me.
So this would be the exact same thing, right? They're making a supposition based on an estimate. This would equally have to apply to men. But if the social stigma is there by your own admission, that men are basically not reporting the instances of unwanted touching from women due to this social stigma, we don't actually know how bad that social stigma really is, do we?
No, and I mean, that's also what feminists, that's a great point, and I agree with you, because feminists, that is one of, it's also my 60 seconds, right?
Well, we're having a back and forth now, so.
Oh, okay. Well, can I have 60 seconds? Because I would just like to talk a little bit about, like, stigma.
Well, you can't, We can't get into a back and forth and then like arbitrarily demand whole blocks.
Okay, well, I'm just going to give some statistics because I think we're on the same page here. I think we've actually found common ground. So the stigma around SA and abuse is what allows these numbers to be underreported. And so I think that because that's what feminists want, is we want men to be comfortable coming forward as well, because we want safety and equality for the sexes. That is what the definition of the term is the belief in social, economic, and political equality of the sexes.
Let me refute these.
She had to read that from her book because she got it wrong earlier. You heard her say earlier that feminism was the pursuit of ending violence against females by men. And now she's changed that definition to the correct one that was written in her book after she read it. Watch.
The sexes. That is what the definition of the term is the belief in social, economic, and political equality of the sexes.
Let me refute.
And she looked at the camera for the first time in the entire podcast when she said it. I don't miss a fucking thing, me.
These lies because
Well, I think that some people don't
I don't miss a fucking thing.
believe that
all
who are feminists, but
national campaigns that I've seen hyper focus on women and the abuse of women, already making the supposition that men are the monsters and the criminals who are doing the unwanted touching and the essaying. And because of that, because this is done at a national level, at a state level, at a local level, and the organizations and NGOs are all hyper focusing on women, this stigma towards men is never addressed because women are only looking at it through the prism of women.
It's not just women who are working on these studies, right, and who are writing these articles.
It doesn't.
Andrew's point here is that we will never achieve equality if women expect men to look through the world through the eyes of a woman, but women are not capable of looking through the eyes of the world at the world through the eyes of a man. So obviously it's not easy for a man to try and see the world as a woman does because we're not women, just as it's difficult for women to see the world the way men do because you aren't men. So if you're going to expect men to see the world from a woman's perspective, feminists are going to have to learn to see the world from a man's perspective. Otherwise, we will not get anywhere. We will not get anywhere at all.
So
matter.
men,
Don't you say men can be feminists?
Yeah.
Okay,
but
so by your criteria, these men who have the same exact worldview as you, they're still hyper-focusing on feminism. And the idea always starts with the supposition that men are the more violent sex, that they are more often doing these types of SA, sexual assaults, things like this. And what do we end up with? We end up with very skewed numbers based on the criteria, right? Where within just a matter of minutes, we can determine that not only can most of this stuff be replicated, but we can also determine that just based on the viewed categorization of these things, they can't be true. These numbers can't be true.
Okay, now,
But they can be reasonably accurate. I can reasonably accurately say that more men are likely to be violent than women are. But at the same time, if you're going to ask about who's quickest to be violent, not who is the most violent or who is violent most frequently. No, if you ask who is quickest to violence, my answer would be women. Personally speaking, I notice women are the quickest to slap a man on the arm or to push him or like to strike a man. For when a man decides to strike another man, he usually takes a bit of time to consider it. It's not an impulse. It's not a I'll just do this and see what happens, because it's a risk of death. So, although men are probably more frequently violent, and more men are violent than women, I would personally say that women are quicker to violence than men, which is actually backed up in fact. If you look at queens in history, queens were more likely to start wars than men. So, you could argue that women are definitely more quick to violence, but men are more violent than women in other ways, if that makes sense. So more men are violent, and men are violent more frequently than women. But that's more because of the variable that men have to fight each other for like superiority sort of thing. Like fighting is a sport, like competition, Call of Duty, football, rugby, tennis, golf, darts, pool, you name it. Men have come up with ways to compete against each other to see who's better. Like, even comedians are trying to see who's funniest. Do you know what I mean? Who's the funniest guy? Like, Usain Bolt, we all know him because he's the fastest man that ever lived. Ran 100 meters in nearly 9 seconds with a shoelace untied. Like, Men like to compete and, push ourselves and each other to higher levels. That's what we do, okay? It's a hierarchy. It's what we do. So, in that hierarchy, as we are animals, we challenge each other sometimes. And that's a fight. But obviously there's a massive risk attached to it of death or severe injury. So men don't take fights lightly. We don't just think, oh, I'll hit them, because we know they're going to hit back. Whereas from a female perspective, they'll think, I can hit him and there's nothing he can do. He's a man. He can't hit me. I'm a girl. Right? So she'll be quicker to hit him from the delusion.
So I don't understand where you're coming from with how it can't be true, how something can't be true. Because again, if you're going off of something being underreported and the data not being there, you're saying, okay.
But obviously, not all men. Not all men, not all women. Because I'm a man. Fucking hell. Ooh. Take a drink, that'll help. So yeah, I'm a man, and although I've had a laugh with my brother and maybe friends in school, maybe shove them or rugby tackle, something daft, I've never actually started a fight. I've never thrown the first punch in a fight. I've never started one, ever. But I finished them all. I've never started one, but because so many men are violent and frequently violent, and of course a lot of females are quick to violent. People then assume me as a violent man who's quick to violence. It's so ridiculous. You can't just apply things universally. So, although I would say that more women are quick to violence than men, that doesn't apply to all women. And when I say more men are more frequently violent and more men are generally violent than women, that doesn't mean all men. We're not all the same. This is the problem with equality. This is the biggest problem equality faces, because how can you have an equal society where everyone is treated equally when we are not actually equal in reality? None of us are really equal. It's kind of a lie. We are all born equal, blank pieces of paper in which the world will print a beautiful painting on, sure. But apart from that moment onwards, we kind of lose our equality. All of our parents have different amounts of money. All of our houses are either nicer or worse than the other. We all have either nicer or worse clothes than the other. We're all either taller, thinner, fatter, shorter, weaker, stronger, smarter, dumber, slower, faster. The list is endless. So how in a world where we are not even equal, even my identical twins are not even equal? Do you know what I mean? They've lived different lives, like two different snowflakes falling through a storm. They've suffered different variables and so formed differently, even though they were twins. Identical twins are literally different people who behave differently, have different opinions. They might be very similar, but they're still different. So they're not equal then, are they? Not truly. So I am a massive believer of equality. I try and push it all the time. But this is the biggest problem it faces. How, in an unequal world, do you treat things equally?
Well, then this is true, which means this can't be true, which means this, and you're not even going from actual data.
Do you want me to demonstrate it?
No, I'm okay. I'm talking for now, please.
Well, I'll demonstrate it real quick. So it would be like this.
No, I'm actually okay.
Are there?
I feel like you've dominated the conversation for the last few minutes. If that's okay, if I would like to.
Well, I thought you just wanted me to demonstrate for you. So.
No.
I need my own show. These guys don't know shit.
No, I'm actually okay on that. Thank you.
You don't want me to? You asked me a question. You don't want me to answer it?
No. I was actually in the middle of talking.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. No, that was genuine. I wasn't trying to be rude.
I know. You're welcome.
Thanks. The
patriarchy's benevolent.
Yes.
I hate it when you try and be sincere with someone and you've had a little tiff, and they take it as sarcasm because, people project their own way of thinking onto others. So she would have been being sarcastic there. So she thought he was being sarcastic. Do you know what I mean? But That's so
So
stupid.
I think that the 4 principles that is a common misconception, and if you want to refute these, like, I would love that. But working to increase equality economically and politically for women, which again, not rooted in female supremacy, but some people think it is. Expanding human choice, meaning male, female, everyone. Eliminating gender stratification, which means, globally, it's
Hang on, can we move back to 2?
Yes, expanding human choice. And for everybody. And then 3, eliminating gender stratification. How like most of the power and money is concentrated to men globally. So sort of making the opportunities there for women. And again, like you have to think about this globally as well. Like we're very US centric, I think, in this debate, but there are definitely countries where women are really, really deprived of any sort of autonomy. And then the final.
That is correct. There are literally some women in the world who are just slaves. They're literally just slaves to a husband who has like 7 of them. Do you know what I mean? Like, some women in the world are no different to a slave 200 years ago. They don't even see it that way. They have to be grateful that a husband wants to take care of them and that someone actually wants to be with them. Do you know what I mean? Come on. I can understand some women's point of view who are feminists completely. But at the end of the day, they're all sitting in an air-conditioned building in like Britain or the United States talking about it, surrounded by men who would happily mostly give down their lives to try and protect the women around them, and a police force that would protect them, an army that would protect them, and nuclear bombs that would protect them, as well as a few 100 million men who would protect them. It's easy to sit there and talk about this stuff here, but it's not going to do anything, is it? Because we already have equality here. You need to go to Afghanistan. You need to go to Iraq. You need to go to Saudi Arabia. Literally, what was it, only a year ago or 2, in Saudi Arabia, women were allowed to drive without a man. Like, or allowed to drive, but they still have to have a man. Something like that.
One is ending sexual violence, which we've talked about quite a lot. So those are the 4 principles of feminism as we see it today. And although there are different places around the world, I guess we can focus sort of here and globally if you have points on that. Or if you just want to confine it to the U.S., then let me know. But.
Yeah, well, the U.S. is where I live. That's what I'm talking about. But
okay.
So when we're discussing this idea.
It's easy to dismiss the feminist issues outside of the USA when there's literally no female equal rights issues inside the USA. That's a bit disingenuous, if I'm honest. But that's his prerogative, isn't it? As she said, his narrative.
Especially.
This is going to make me look like a fucking feminist, this video, isn't it?
No, these numbers are accurate. That actually can't be true. You said, no, it actually can be. Well, no, it can't be because, one, you've already admitted that there's a stigma towards reporting, which means that these numbers are already skewed right from the get-go. Here's a good demonstration of this. This is something you'll hear psychologists say a lot, and I'm sure you probably said it yourself, that mental illness probably has always been somewhat near as high as it is right now. It's just that it went underreported, right? That's something that you would say, or there's just as many transgender people now as there were, or homosexuals. It's just that we didn't have the right numbers because they weren't able to report them correctly, right? Mm-hmm. So it follows then that if it is the case that under all of these circumstances, due to a lack of reporting due to stigma, we didn't have the correct numbers, and so you can suppose that into the data that you have right now for how many there's always been.
Right.
Why couldn't I do the exact same thing with SA numbers?
No, you can, but how are you going to get the how are you going to get the figure that it is more? Are you saying it's more female perpetrators than male perpetrators? How could you possibly get that
because
number?
If I look at the raw data and we look at stigmas, right? If we're looking,
we agree on stigma, but the data, how do you have that?
Because the data is not taking into account the stigma towards male reporting.
But it is. But I'm saying there are no reported cases.
Yeah, you can't.
It's not. You're right.
How do you report the cases if the stigma is there for them to not report?
Any takers?
Whoa.
Bloody adverts. Fuck off.
How do we come up with any? Because these other places, they come up with estimates, these studies that you just cited. So how do we come up with an estimate for female perpetrators?
Whether we come up with the estimate or not, we have good reason to doubt the various estimates by RAINN and these other sexual advocacy organizations, especially when I look at the NIS. Because when I look at the NIS, I get totally different numbers, and it's way more comprehensive. It's the largest most comprehensive data set on planet Earth is the NIS, and that's what it shows. It shows that women are far more likely to abuse their children than men. When women are in positions of dominant power and authority over weaker people than themselves, they're more likely to abuse almost every time. This is also included in healthcare stats. When they are in charge of people who are weaker than them in healthcare situations, they abuse far more than men do.
You keep talking about the NIS. Like, which specific, like, are you talking about the national, because the specific study that you're talking about, how women are perpetrators more frequently, genuinely cannot find.
I think if you can't do a debate from memory, you shouldn't be allowed to debate. Like, you shouldn't be able to just sit there with a phone and use the phone as your representation of knowledge that you had to source and ask the world about. Like, you can't use that as your representation of your understanding. They should have their phones down, their phones away, their paper away, and do it mind to mind. Brain to brain. That's how debate works. Brain to brain. It's not fucking phone to phone, you bellends.
Find it anywhere on the internet.
Okay, I'll pull up the exact study if you give me just a second.
Yeah,
here.
no, that's fine. Because I'm looking at like the Bureau of Justice statistics and like, you know, like the FBI
So you can
and
find this from the US.
even the CDC
You can
talks
find
about
this
it.
Let me just look up this fact to prove you wrong. Ha ha. I'm American. Ha ha.
From the U.S. Department of Justice. Sexual victimization in juvenile facilities reported by youth 2012.
Okay.
Okay?
Don't shoot me, America.
And is this where you're saying that
These are all comprehensive.
Female-
These are all comprehensively included inside of the NIS. This is what I'm saying is that I have each individual study ready for you. You can look also, and we can move to this as well if you want
Okay.
to.
Wait, so is this the one where you're saying that female perpetrators are more frequent? Is that what you're talking
Yes,
about?
yes. That's from
From the
the
National
National
Inmate-
Incident Study.
Oh, National Incident Study.
Yes.
Okay.
The largest collection of all types of reported data related to abuse, maltreatment of children. 68% of maltreated children were maltreated by a female, 48% maltreated by a male. And every circumstance, the NIS finds that when women are put in charge of people who are weaker than themselves are more likely to abuse than the stronger sex, that being men. And what's interesting about this is it gives us every reason to believe that if women had the exact same frame and build as men did, that men that they would actually abuse far more often than men do them, right? So what we're looking at here is we're looking at a huge problem where women who are supposedly...
You could actually watch, there's a certain species of lemur, can't remember which one it was, where the female is the alpha, and they're bigger than the males. So if you watch that society of lemurs, and compared it to a patriarchal society of lemurs, where the male is the alpha and the bigger species, so to speak, because you get different types of lemurs. That would help to prove or disprove this fact they're talking about right now. Just, help out a little bit.
Being abused by men are doing a whole lot of abuse which is going unreported of children while you're focusing on the scapegoat of men.
Yeah, I don't doubt that women are, unfortunately, a lot of women are abusing children, but the study that you're saying, the only thing that I'm able to find is that 1 in every 25 children in the U.S. experience maltreatment. Neglect is more prevalent than abuse. And then they talk about how for the 4% of children that experience genuine maltreatment and in danger of death.
I'd just like to say that my mother just didn't abuse me. Slight neglect, but that's standard for most children. I think she works too hard. It wasn't because she was neglectful. It's because she worked too hard, so hard that she didn't have any spare time. The only spare time she had was to clean the house. So, although I suffered a lot of child abuse from the hands of my father and brother and sister, my mother didn't abuse me. So maybe that's why I'm nice to women. Who knows?
But I'm not seeing anything.
Would make sense.
It says, girls were sexually abused much more often than boys under the harm standard and endangerment standard, with male perpetrators being more common. That's all I was able to find.
Okay, would you like for me to actually link it to you? That was just from the juvenile facility study, though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But what about the NIS data? The NIS data is going to be the most important because it's the most comprehensive collection of it.
It's funny because you keep repeating this talking point about a study that I can't find.
Well, how do you...
I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but...
So you think that the National Incident Study is not reporting this? Like I could link. I can link it to you.
No, I believe it. I'm just saying, like, there are so many more common sources that have different numbers talking about how male perpetrators are more common than the study that you're talking about. Because I genuinely,
I got a little more for you. The U.S. Department.
Can you airdrop it to me?
The U.S. Department of Health and Human Services has been tracking the data on child abuse and neglect since 1978 with something called the National Incident Study (NIS). The National Incident Study is a congressionally mandated periodic effort of the United States Department of Health and Human Services. There have been 4 such reports, the latest being the NIS-4, which came out 2010. This includes the breakdown. The NIS gathers data from all reporting agencies and any study will pull from these agencies because it's the congressional authority which is gathering that data. The methodology, the NIS uses a standard definitional framework for classifying child maltreatment, including both types of abuse and neglect. These are the legitimate numbers, and feminists have been hiding them under a rock because they don't want to talk about this issue.
I think that is an interesting theory. I think that a lot of the things that you're talking about go more into theory than into fact. And that's okay. I think that goes into what I'm saying is like, just generally, that's why I'm here, is to debunk a lot of the myths.
But you can debunk that myth.
Well, again, you said you would send me the study. Cannot find the study that women are more likely to be perpetrators. It doesn't. I genuinely cannot find a single thing. I've been looking for 5-10 minutes.
You've been looking for what? Have you been looking on NIS?
I literally looked at exactly what you said. Cannot find the numbers.
It's okay.
Now, because I'm not. This is not trying to be like an appeal to like authority, but I've done like debate my whole life, and like obviously, like most of the time we tend to focus on the facts. So to me,
told you. You can tell both of these two sat in a debate club in their high schools, and they've developed these tactics and methods to deal in a debate. But the truth of the matter is, the only thing you need to win a debate is truth. And either you are truthfully right or you are truthfully wrong. If you're going to do disingenuous debating, where you misrepresent statistics to try and help your narrative, all you're doing is sitting there lying to try and prove a point you don't even believe yourself. Otherwise, you wouldn't need to lie to prove it. So it's just disingenuous. Like the whole way most Americans are taught to debate is very disingenuous. Like the whole fact they're sitting there on their phones using a source. Don't get me wrong. I know science, you got to use your sources and stuff. But when you're talking about a debate, it's your opinion and beliefs against their opinions and beliefs and your understanding and debating it, right? So if you're going to use your phone, you're not using your knowledge and understanding. You're going outside the debate to get someone else's understanding and bringing that information back in and applying that to your opponent. Like, I don't think that's a genuine debate. Like, you aren't genuinely debating. A genuine debate is one person speaking to another person. Mano y mano. Brain. Like, that's how it is. You can't use your phones. You can't use pieces of paper. Like, that's cheating. Imagine a debate is a test, because it's a test of your mind against the test of someone else's mind. The way Americans are taught debate, I'm sorry, is wrong. It's fucking wrong.
If I can't understand the facts that they don't exist of where I'm finding it, that is a problem for me.
Lenders may have...
Andrew Wilson, the masturbator.
Okay, I saw that. It didn't say the numbers that you were talking about.
I know I should say master debater, but it sounds better if you leave out the duh.
I was just on that website, and it did not say that female perpetrators are more common.
Did you read that entire thing in 2 minutes? That is nonsense. It is huge. There is no possible way you went through those numbers. I'm a fast reader.
I read like
that is the biggest
300 books a year.
That is the biggest crux. There is no possible.
I read like 300 books a year. Well, I read like 300 fucking Facebook posts a day. Does that make me more literate than someone else?
Way you went through that in 2 minutes. It is massive.
Okay, no. You can think that. It's okay.
What do you mean think that? That is not humanly possible. Do you have magic powers that I'm unaware of?
I don't know.
Pretty smart. What? Oh, come on. At least be honest in the debate. I mean, you could just say I didn't read it. You say I couldn't find the numbers that you're citing. There's no possible way you looked at that.
The numbers that you're talking about, they
don't exist.
female perpetrators are not more common than male perpetrators. So, like, again, I would prefer that we would stick to actual reality and facts.
That these are the actual realities and facts. I just showed you the study, right? The most likely reason why women are more likely to abuse than men, other than the fact they're not being used, checked on using force, is the UK's leading mental health charity. The Mental Health Foundation says that today, women are 3 times more likely than men to experience common mental health problems as well. Do you want to go over that?
About how men are more likely to experience mental health issues?
No, women are more likely to experience mental health issues.
Correct. I would completely agree that women are more likely to suffer mental health problems than men in certain cases where it depends. This is what I mean. Context is required. What mental health problem are we talking about? Because if you're going to talk about, like, schizophrenia, it's probably more common in men. But if you're going to talk about, like, bipolar or narcissistic personality disorder, it's more common in females. Depression, it depends. Depression is more common in men, but if you're going to talk about, like, postnatal depression, it's more common in women. Fathers very rarely get postnatal depression, but they do get it. But of course, mothers get it more. Like, context is required. You can't just put every mental illness in one box and say, oh, men are more mentally ill or women are more mentally ill. It doesn't work that way. It just doesn't. It doesn't work that way.
Is your point? Yes.
Than men.
Well,
how is she a qualified psychologist? And how is he the best debater in the world? Bollocks to you. The internet needs to learn.
your point?
Well, how is feminism combating this?
I would hope that we can continue to do a better job. I mean, there's a lot of people that I know that really struggle with their mental health, and a lot of, I mean, we don't have to get too deep into it, but I know that a lot of women who have experienced some abuse sexually at the hands of a man, and then that led them to have mental health issues. I also know men.
More than soldiers have PTSD?
No. PTSD is certainly an issue, but you can get PTSD from a number of things.
So I would say the only reason more men have suffered from post-traumatic stress disorder is because more men are put in stressful job situations than women. Like, you're far more likely to get post-traumatic stress disorder if you're a soldier, police officer, firefighter, or oil rig worker, compared to if you work at a school or, you know, or as a hairdresser or at a university. Men work in the most dangerous jobs in the world, so they're more likely to develop post-traumatic stress disorder because they are exposed to more dangerous situations than females more frequently. Very rarely is a woman exposed to more dangers than a soldier running through fucking bombs and gunfire.
Mm-hmm. So I would like to point out that, like, just saying one thing doesn't negate the other, right? So, like, just because I think it's important to talk about women's mental health doesn't mean men's mental health isn't important, because, again, they are more likely to, like, you know, unalive themselves.
And what about the fact that women's mental health...
Yeah, men are much more likely to commit suicide than women. That is very true. And you're much better off speaking about your problems as a man than just bottling it all up and letting the bottle explode one day, because you'll go crazy and do something stupid or do that. You might as well just try and deal with it by talking about it. As difficult as it is, talking about your problems is far easier than killing yourself, isn't it? Let's be honest, it's fucking far easier.
Has been astronomically growing in the negative direction under feminism, especially under the egalitarianism of gender. They report the happiest levels that women report are when they're married and in traditional gender roles.
Have you ever heard of the term ignorant? The phrase "ignorance is bliss"?
I'm sorry. Do I need to go and experience killing someone, right, to know that I don't want to experience killing someone?
What? Well, how does that have anything to do with?
Well, ignorance is bliss. It's possible, for instance, that I could kill someone and really love it, right?
Would I be able to maybe talk about it?
Well, hang on. I want you to answer my question. Is that possible?
I just don't really understand how that's related. Can you answer my
question, though? Is it possible?
That's something that should never have been said as a joke, just in case someone got any funny ideas who ever watched that video. You know, most people aren't so easily influenced, but if a child was to watch that and goes, maybe killing is fun. You got to sometimes be careful, because knowledge is power.
That I could kill somebody and then just really like it.
But how does that in
Can
any
you
way...
answer my question, please? Stop negating the question. Just answer the question.
I just don't really want to talk about
I don't
murder.
care what you want to talk. I want you to answer my question, I'll answer
I'm not
yours.
answering your question. Just go to
You're
your
not going to answer my question?
about murder. That's not related to this at all.
Yes, it's it's logically
Answer how you think I would answer. Answer how you want me to answer.
What do you mean? I'm in a debate with you. I'm not in a debate with me.
I'm not why would I answer this hypothetical question about murder that has nothing to do with the... I was talking about...
Then if it has nothing to do with it, I'm going to look really stupid, right? So just answer the question.
So, go ahead and finish, because I would like to...
Yeah, so my question to you was, isn't it possible that I could kill someone and really like it? That would be yes or no.
Did you know that almost...
This is all about ignorance is bliss. Like, Andrew's trying to refute... Ignorance is bliss. Like, if you're unaware of the problem, it's much usually more peaceful than if you are aware of the problem. It's quite simple.
Yeah, I understand how this works, but...
I need you to answer my questions. We're in a debate. I will answer your questions, but you also need to answer mine, or I can't get to the worldview. Yes or no?
Okay. This seems like a really moot point to me, and
Can you just answer it then? You've wasted like 2 minutes not answering the question.
This is like a 3-hour debate.
Yeah, why are you wasting time? Just answer the question.
Look, Kylie, it's conceivable that you're going to propose hypothetical questions to Andrew to test
and I'll answer
his
them.
Logic and worldview. He'll answer it. I think it's a fair question if you can answer it.
As the moderator, sure. I suppose it is possible, yes, that if you did it, then you would enjoy it, although it makes me uncomfortable to talk about that.
Okay, but if this is the case, well, it would be possible for any human being.
Yeah.
Yeah, logically possible. So the thing is that knowing that this is true, that we could, I am actually ignorant, having never killed anybody, right? And I am in bliss about that. I, myself, am really, really happy that I've never done that, even though I could do that and could be very happy about that. The idea that you would make the point, ignorance is bliss, seems to entail...
Well, you didn't even let me get to talk.
Hang on. I just want to...
You're just talking over me.
I'll give you the question.
Oh, I have to wait for you to let me talk. Thank you.
Like, she's behaved really childishly there. Like, she interrupted him because she knew he was about to prove her wrong. She anticipated that he had no reason and logical purpose to ask the question he was asking, which was quite a ludicrous question, granted, but he had a reason to ask it, and he knew that. She didn't believe he had a reason to ask that question. So, when he did actually ask the question and start to provide a logical ground and framework as to why he asked it, which was then about to prove her wrong in some way or counteract her in some way, she wanted to interrupt him and stop him from doing that as a defensive mechanism because she doesn't want to look bad. Let's watch that again.
The idea that you would make the point, ignorance is bliss, seems to entail...
Well, you didn't even let me get to talk.
Hang on. I just want to...
You're just talking...
She is keeping projecting what she's doing to him at him as if he's doing it to her. She's just interrupted him, claiming that he's not like letting her like watch.
You would make the point, ignorance is bliss, seems to entail...
Well, you didn't even let me get to talk.
Hang on. I just want to...
You're just talking over me.
I'll give you the...
She's literally tried to let him make his point as best he can, and then got to the point where he's about to make the point, and interrupted him, and then made this stupid little grin. Because she knows exactly what she's doing. She has got a degree in psychology. She knows exactly what she's doing. She's gaslighting him into trying to trigger him to try and play victim or make him out to be the bad guy. Because he was about to prove her wrong and make her look bad, her defense mechanism was to try and make him look bad.
I have to wait for you to let me talk. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
So what I would say is this. When you say ignorance is bliss, all you're doing is alluding to the fact that people should engage in risky behavior.
I'm giving you 15 seconds, and if you don't give me the mic, I'm leaving. Go ahead. 15.
Oh, my God. You're going to leave?
Yeah.
Oh, no. Uh-oh.
Look, Andrew's finishing his point.
I was.
He was finishing his point.
No, I'm serious.
Then,
15 seconds.
I'm super serious, guys. I'm super serious.
Hold on,
because he's been talking for the last 5 minutes, so it's really not fair. You're not moderating very well here.
Well, to be fair...
Oh, now she's picking on Brian. Because she couldn't pick on him and it didn't work. So now she's picking on Brian. Anything to try and make herself look like the victim so she has a good enough reason to leave. Because she knows, currently at this moment in time, she has no justification and grounds for leaving this podcast and she would look bad. So she's now going to try and attempt to trigger Brian in an attempt to cause a situation where she can play victim and walk out. This is the feminist playbook every day. I'm sorry, how is this a grown woman? Like, she's a grown woman with degrees and behaving in a way where she's treating... I can understand that, like, those two men in front of her, it's not so easy when you're involved and the woman's in front of you, because, like, we're all human beings. I'm watching this as a neutral, balanced observer, right? I'm not involved, so I'm not attached into the situation, so I can observe it correctly. And the behaviour is, honestly, if she does that, if that was the behaviour inside of a relationship, that is domestic abuse. I swear to God, it's manipulation, because she's trying to get the male to start acting hostile so she can play the victim. So if that was a relationship, she'd be like trying to get the man to kick off so she could, like, you know, ring the police and say he's kicking off. Do you know what I mean? And make him out to be the villain and herself out to be the victim. Like, this stuff is very dangerous for our society, to allow this sort of behaviour to go on unchecked.
You guys got to allow...
We were actually doing really well, I think.
Hold on.
Until I would...
Backfired because it didn't work, so now, you know, she's going to backpedal.
Until I was making a broader point, then that wasn't allowed.
Well, it was at the expense of me speaking is the problem.
Hold on, just one moment. So, look, in conversations and especially in a debate, look, sometimes people are gonna butt in. There's been a few times you've done it.
Yeah.
Andrew's done it. You've both done it. I'm trying my best here.
Well, that's why I'm alerting you. I feel like at this point I would like to be able to speak my point, because he rebutted me before I was able to give my point, and that's been happening the last 5 minutes.
You asked me a question. Have you heard the term ignorance is bliss?
So I could speak and
Yes, so she was being disingenuous. Yeah.
explain my point.
Yeah, so then I said yes and said, but here's the problem with that.
And then talk for about 3-4 minutes and then try to back me into corner
give
over
the
nonsense.
expression. When I ask you a question, you answer it. I expect a yes or no, and then you give a comprehensive answer like I...
This is what I meant when I said women have a more intensity of experience with emotion due to more estrogen than men. And, like, me saying that will get some women just hating me for saying it. Like, but it's the truth. Women experience emotions more intensely than men. You can literally see her experiencing this emotion very intensely. And obviously a woman's emotions intensity fluctuates throughout the month, and they have different levels of intensities depending on the point of the month they're on, all right? You men are honestly amateurs. Fucking amateurs.
I was.
So can I give my explanation?
Did you...
Monday.com's AI blocks are a total game changer.
Excuse me if I find that hard to believe.
You know that llamas are biologically incapable.
Are you done, Andrew?
Yeah.
Okay.
So you going back like 5 minutes basically to what you mentioned was the term like, oh, women are happier in the home with a husband and kids, right? And so the term of ignorance is bliss, I think for a lot of women who do not have the opportunity to get an education and they are forced to be in the home, they don't know any other alternative. So some women are truly happy, but if that becomes the standard that women have to be in the home and have kids and they don't have the opportunity to get an education, then of course that's going to be something that they think brings them joy because they don't have any other opportunities. And so like there's a lot of people in my mom's generation or my grandma's generation where like they were like, man, I wish I could have gone to school and like had an education and like picked someone, and they just fell into a marriage that either was abusive or like they weren't happy. And so I think that it's easier to report higher levels of happiness when you perceive it to be your only option is living in the home and having children and raising them. Yeah. So, but what do you have to say to that? Because
so interestingly,
because it goes to your like underreported things like you were talking about earlier.
Well, first of all, when you give anecdotal evidence like, oh, my mom and mom's friends.
Oh, I can give you an actual study if you want.
May have and I can refute it. I promise. But here's the thing: when you give anecdotal evidence and you say, well, my mom's friends, this and that, wish that they could have gone to school. There's also anecdotal evidence, and an awful lot of it, and you can find it on YouTube right now. Tons of women saying they wish that they had not gone and gotten a career, and wish that they would have instead deferred those childbearing years in order to have a family, because they see the happiness levels of their friends, colleagues, coworkers, things like this. That anecdotally is also just as true. But to even go on to the ignorance is bliss, I could say this and make this case about literally anything. I could say, well, I would love heroin, right? I've never taken it, but ignorance is bliss, right? Oh, I could say ignorance.
That's probably the reason no one should ever take heroin, is in case you like it. Like that's literally the one reason you should never take it, in case you like it. I've never tried heroin. Don't ever intend on trying heroin. And I've avoided every opioid my entire life as best I can, including morphine. Like I got offered morphine once in hospital. I was like, nope, don't want it. Nope, Don't want it. Just I don't want it. Like, no, don't do it. If anyone ever tries to suggest you to take heroin, tell them to shut the fuck up and go away. Right, that's what you do.
Literally anything, any drug,
Well, that's not the only
hang on,
statistic I have,
any
though.
risky, I didn't cut you off, any risky behavior, any of this. I could say that about anything. What you're doing is saying, these women are happy. There must be some bad reason for that.
Oh, no, some women are happy.
No, you're saying,
I agree.
These women
Yeah, the ones who take accountability.
are happy, and there must be a bad reason for that, and the bad because they're doing
Not for all
traditional.
of them.
Hang on, because they're doing traditional gender roles. So that must be bad. So we can explain that away by saying if they had all these negative experiences, that those women who have those negative experiences actually report a higher unhappiness level, those women would actually be happier. That's absurd logic, by the way.
Okay, sure. Well, again, I agreed with you on quite a few things there, but I would also like to say that, like I said at the beginning in my opening statement, the home being the most dangerous place for women, like there are women who are in abusive marriages, and so they have to convince themselves that they are happy because their husband is beating them or like assaulting them or harming their children. And when you're in that sort of situation, it's very difficult to be able to walk away from it, and oftentimes because you're isolated. And so, yeah, because the home is the most dangerous place for women, and 6 women are killed every hour in the home around the world. Those are very difficult realities that a lot of people don't want to grasp. And I'm not saying that every woman doesn't.
You see, right? My issue here, she's made a perfectly reasonable point, all very valid, but in the middle of making this point, she tries to use previously used statistics she's already used to try and make men out to be evil, to try and hammer home the point of men being bad in amongst the point that she was making. So now her point holds less value. If she just got to a point and made it without trying to make men out to be this X, Y, and Z, because of the blah, 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 and just got to the point, it would have been much more valid. But now it's lost credibility. I don't really care. Like, why are you trying to slate my gender in the middle of your point when your point wasn't about slating my gender?
Isn't happy in the home. I think there are plenty of happy moms. I mean, my mom has worked and raised our children, her children, and my sister.
Literally, she's in the middle of talking about women and women's struggles, and just chose to slate men with like 4 statistics about them, like that she'd already mentioned. She's already said them. Like, her point was already valid without those statistics. She had no need to back it up. It was... Oh, you lot need to learn how to fucking be humans, I swear. The thing is, we're never going to get anywhere when you've got a feminist debating a chauvinist, or a misandrist debating a misogynist, like a racist debating a fucking pacifist. It's never going to work. You need to progress past the point of this separation, where there's me against you, us against them. You're either with me or against me. Like, that's what all America is. Left, right, feminist or like misogynist, fucking conservative or liberal. They force all Americans, like, I don't know how they do it in your country, but you're all forced to pick a side on everything. Everything. Sports, religion. You're forced to pick a side. There's no centrists in America. It's either left or right. There's no like agnostic as religious people in America. That's just atheists who haven't accepted that they deny God yet, or theists who aren't true atheists. Do you know, there's no middle ground. That they are forced to almost pick a side, so they're always at war with each other, rather than the people who keep fucking their lives up. And they're just almost oblivious to it, if I'm honest. Like, I just watch and laugh because I try and point it out to everyone, and you all think I'm the crazy one. Like, no. Well, yes, but not in this context.
And I, and like help my dad out with like work, but yeah, for the most part was a stay-at-home mom, and I think she really enjoyed it. But for me at this point in my life, that's not something that I would like, and it's not to say that it's it's a bad thing, but I think that some people are convincing themselves that they're happy when in reality it's a very difficult situation.
I'm gonna have to go back to the NIS where I point out to you that as you keep saying that the most dangerous situation for women is in the home.
Well, that's according to the UN around the world, though, not just here.
Okay, but inside of the United States, at least, and inside of the Western nations, this is a commonality that they all share. It's not usually from the husband. It's usually from boyfriends of single women or single moms, or as far as, for instance, cohabitation leads to some of the worst outcomes for women when they're not married, and men. It leads to terrible outcomes for both. This idea that you have that when you say this, it's very loaded. It gives the impression that husbands are at home abusing their wives, and the opposite is actually true. The truth is that when women get divorced and they end up in these occupied relationships, that's when they end up with the most amount of abuse, not from their husbands.
Well, I think it's, you know how we were talking about earlier about like confounding factors.
One thing you've got to understand about Andrew Wilson is he is like, well, he identifies as a Christian, which is fine, you know, that's fine. So he's like a Christian, white American sort of guy, you know. So he is really against abortion. He is really against divorce. Like, and that's his. So you got to understand where he's coming from. So no matter what he's saying and doing, the back of his mind is always pushing his ideology, the same as all of ours is always pushing our own beliefs, even if we don't want them to. So he's trying to, you know, make men and women stay together rather than get divorced. And it's not a bad thing, you know, it's not a bad thing, really. It's just, I just had to point that out. Like, you have to know where he's coming from, you know. He's not some atheist sitting there with no reason for what he said there. He is a Christian man who that is his belief, and he's trying to state his religious belief and what he thinks should be the case, which is fine.
Divorced and they end up in these occupied relationships, that's when they end up with the most amount of abuse.
So he's trying to suggest that obviously, you know, if you break up with your husband, you'll end up in a domestic abuse relationship. You know, he's playing the same game she's playing back at her, sort of thing, which is a common debate tactic I use, is to use their own method against them. Like, it's a common tactic to use. It's very easy to do. You just have to recognize what your opponent is trying to do and then do it back at them in your own way. It's that simple.
Not from their husbands.
Well, I think it's, you know how we were talking about earlier about like confounding factors and other things that might, the classification of things might change the results of studies. For this one, I'm looking at it, and it says facts and statistics on, you know, domestic violence DV, and it's mainly including intimate partner. So it's not talking about husband or boyfriend.
That's why we separate them, right? So we would separate those two categories to see who's the more abusive.
Do you have a statistic?
Yes, I just gave it to you twice from the NIS.
But I know, but like I'm looking at it, and again, like I'm having.
Show me the numbers from the NIS that you're looking at. I actually don't believe you.
Oh, I'm not looking at the NIS right now. I was looking at it earlier, could not find the number you were talking about.
Yeah, but you looked at it
that does not
for 1
exist.
minute.
No, I didn't.
You did. I literally pulled it direct from the NIS itself.
When there is a minor in the home and there is abuse, they look at both parents. And in that case, they are finding, according to this, the Domestic Violence Center data for Mankind Initiative, I'm finding...
The Mankind Initiative?
Yeah, here,
the
I'll
cult?
send it to you.
The cult? The Mankind Initiative?
Join the action.
Feminist cult.
I have no idea what you're talking. I mean, this is like it's a statistic, like it's like a study that's produced.
Yeah,
I could go to the University of Pennsylvania's one
do
if you
that
want.
because the Mankind Initiative, as far as I know, is a Western cult which exists as a demasculating agency. Just so you know.
Feminist.
Okay. Well, so it's saying analyzing 31,000. This is Penn today. So this does go to your point. It is just slightly above the spouse rate for abusive boyfriends. But again,
and those go reported much more, right? The marriage rates go reported much more than than these rates where you're living outside of the home with another man.
Right. So
because that's the more common living arrangement. Therefore, I am correct. It is true that the most dangerous situation is co-occupancy, not marriage.
I mean, there's different. I think it's difficult.
He is correct. I'm not saying he's wrong. I was just stating why he's saying it. And obviously, he is playing her own game back at her. So I didn't say he was wrong. Just bear that in mind. I wasn't saying Andrew was wrong.
You deal a lot in absolutes, and as a teacher, that's something that we are told not to do to facilitate.
No, Andrew definitely doesn't speak in monoliths. There's always a possibility of exception to himself. He will always admit that himself. I guarantee you, right this second, he'll admit something similar. Watch.
Like open communication is because you typically say, well, this is true. That means I am truth. I am correct in saying this thing. But again, statistics are changing all the time. So actually you're contradicting yourself because at the beginning you were like,
what I'm saying is
things change.
That is some word salad, that is. That is some hellish word salad that even I struggled with. Fuck.
I can negate these with logic by simply pointing this out.
I mean, you can negate
That if it is
anything
the
when you
case-
talk to yourself like you do, because you're not really listening
when
to
it
the
is
words that are coming out of my
case-
mouth.
I'm listening
but-
to, do you want me to steelman your position?
See, she's just projected her own thinking back at him. Honestly, you men would be really surprised how often a woman will do this. It's not as like 99% of the time, but it's like it just crops up here and there. Like something that has nothing to do with anything that's going on or anyone, and they'll just apply it as if it does. I never see it with men. There will be men out there surely who do it, but I just never see it. Like she's applied her. What's this? The third time I've noticed this. Third time.
To yourself like you do, because you're not really
Simply pointing this out.
I mean, you can negate
That
anything
if it is the
when you talk
case-
to yourself like you do, because you're not really listening
When
to
it
the
is
words
the
that are coming out of my
case-
mouth.
I'm listening-
but-
Yeah, she's not really listening to the words coming out of his mouth, and she's projected that at him. If that makes sense.
Yeah, do you want me to steelman your position? You just said to me that
He couldn't steelman it if he wasn't listening. You could only steelman it if he was listening, which is how much he was listening. Like steelmanning a position is repeating someone's position back to them as accurately as possible to prove that you understood and know what they just said. That's what steelmanning the position is. So if you can steelman the position back to them within 2 seconds of them saying it, they can't claim you weren't fucking listening, can they? She's projected her mind onto him as if it's his mind, and it wasn't.
Everything when it comes to statistics is fluid. I would tend to agree with that based on oncoming data which is coming in. However, we still have to apply logic and inductive reasoning even when we're dealing with data sets, especially.
I didn't say we don't. I agree.
So those are unchanging, unconfounding variables, logic and reason. So if we're using those two things, we can easily point to this and say we know for sure that it's going to be underreported in cohabitation and possibly reported at least better from the marriage standpoint. That's probably true. I don't think anybody would really dispute that.
Yeah, actually, I found a study to your point. Researchers have consistently found higher rates of violence in cohabitating compared to marital relationships. But in those cases, still, it is 95% of perpetrators are male. So what do you have to say in terms of that?
Yeah, okay, so here's what happens. What feminism has done, especially with the destruction of the marriage, is it has put women in the most vulnerable position, where now they leave their home with their husband, where the abuse rates are not nearly so high as pretentious feminists pretend they are, so that they can cohabitate with men, with other men who are strangers to them, strangers to their children. It puts their children at risk, and it puts them at actually higher risk than if they had stayed with their husbands in most cases.
Oh, okay. That makes sense as an explanation. But I think that, again, that's an anecdote that's probably not true for everybody. And the cases are...
That is such a psychologist thing to say. Well, I think that's an anecdote that it doesn't really apply to everybody. And that's only because he mentioned how when she talked about her grandmother and mother had experienced this thing shortly before, he said to her that, you know, I could use anecdotal things at all, and she didn't like it. So then she's waited a little while and then applied it back to him. And she did the same thing at the start of this video with interrupting. Like, walked off because he interrupted her, and then interrupted him when she came back. If you honestly watch people properly, you learn a lot.
Pretty clearly in place, like the evidence has shown that regardless of whether there's children in the marriage, 95% of the perpetrators are men. And, you know, we were talking about how it is like...
I'm not perfect, by the way. I'm not saying I'm better than these two. I'm not saying I'm smarter than these two. I'm not saying I know more than these two. Maybe I do about some things. But, you know, if you literally watch people, you can learn a lot. A lot.
Underreported for female perpetrators, right, in marriages. I'm sure there are abusive wives, but I think that the point being is that...
Now, if you watched me carefully, you would have noticed I did that in a defense mechanism because I was thinking, oh, people will research me and analyze me and then maybe find out my flaws and defects. I better cover my ass. Literally, my brain told me to do it. Do you know what I mean? Like, without even telling me, my brain just did it. That if you understand how humans work and you're truthful and honest, instead of denying the truths, even though they hurt, they might damage you, you progress as a human. You become a better person. You learn. You become smarter, wiser. And one day, you might be as smart as the wise James. That's me.
It is it is definitely a pattern in terms of, in the United States, of the home being made unsafe because of men that live there. It doesn't have to be the husband, but it is men that are, being violent with the women that they are living with. And I think your point about how it's women that are picking these boyfriends that are abusing them is not fair, because again, you don't know men that are going to turn out to be abusive until they hit you one day. It doesn't start out with, if you went on a first date with a woman and she clocked you in the face, would you continue to date her? No, you wouldn't. It's the same with women.
Here's what we're going to do. Okay, Andrew, you give your response, then we're going to do prompt change.
Okay.
It's Mr. Vegas.
Whoa, Mr. Vegas. Give your day some at MrVegas.com. Whoa, Mr. Vegas.
This has been my longest reaction video I have ever done so far, and we are only an hour into the video. My reaction video is 2 hours 23, so that means I've been talking for an hour and 20 minutes, and they've talked for 57 minutes. So I have talked for half an hour longer than this debate has. Wow, I just need to learn to shut up, don't I?
But yeah, that was the end of my
I don't even understand this. Like, all of the stats back up exactly what I'm saying. You agree with me that what I'm saying is likely the most true case scenario, at least compared to all the
about
numbers.
Boyfriends being more abusive?
Yeah, can I finish? Right?
Oh, I was just clarifying.
I didn't cut you off. So the thing is like, look, as we look at this data, the data back.
I would like to point out that blink was her saying in her mind, "You did though," but she was thinking about the time he did it earlier. Watch.
I didn't cut you off. So the thing is like, look, as we...
That blink there.
Can
you see it?
Finish, right?
Oh, I was just clarifying.
I didn't cut you off. So the thing is like, look, as we look at the...
See? If you understand humans, honestly, people can't hide the shit that they think they can. You have to be a really highly trained, like, very, very well-trained person to hide the truth from someone like me. Honestly. You could do it in front of me quite easily because, there's smoke and mirrors all around me. But if I'm watching a video and I'm focusing and I'm actually paying attention, honestly, you can't hide shit from me. Fucking nothing.
The data backs up everything that I just said, especially when it comes to cohabitation. You say, well, it's not women's responsibility that they're picking these men. It's like, well, women are initiating most of these divorces. For one, they're leaving their husbands. They put themselves in this confounding situation where now they're being abused by strange men, often because they want them as sexual partners or other things like this. You say, well, that's true that the abuse happens inside of these places, male, whether there's children or not. Great. But when it's a cohabitation event where children are involved, you're now putting your children at risk because the risk skyrockets for abuse. Skyrockets for abuse of those children. No wonder men don't want to get married to modern women if they're going to get divorced, and their women are going to put their children in an abusive situation, right? And that's what the stats show more than anything. Not that women are being abused.
That's not the reason men don't want to get married, let's be honest. As much as it is a good point, men don't want to get married because it's a contract between a man and a woman where 9 times out of 10, if the woman breaks it, she gets the man is punished. Like, so why would you enter into a contract where if the other person breaks it, you get punished? No, why would you do that? That makes no fucking sense.
But that when they have authority over children, they are putting them in situations where they are abused or abusing them themselves. That's what's actually happening.
We do have to change prompts. Andrew, I think you wanted to perhaps discuss patriarchy and force doctrine.
Sure.
Would you like to get into that? Go ahead.
Yeah, you can start.
Yeah, so I'll give you my definition of patriarchy first. It's a historic definition. It means rule of the father. I often will short phrase this to from the father. Usually it operates around something which is patrilineal lineage rather than matrilineal lineage, though not always.
Which means it follows down male authority down the order of generations rather than female authority down the order of generations. But he did say not always, where sometimes a female becomes the head of the household. It's not always a man, but mostly men. That's what he just said. Just because people use fancy wording, I like to try and dumb it down for people like me.
You can have patriarchies where there's matrilineal lineage. You can find this in Judaism and other places like this. When I talk about patriarchy, I'm broadly speaking, at least in modernity and in the last 100 years, about men being in charge of general systems. We could just say men being in charge of general systems, head of the household, head of the family, things like this. My view is that patriarchy is always going to end up being the default, especially the more feminism there is. You'll push more people into the patriarchy role, and here's why. Because of force doctrine. Force doctrine is a doctrine which I came up with, which tries to describe a phenomenon which you yourself are going to have to concede is true. That half of the world right now, if men decide to, they can basically exterminate every single woman inside of their nations, and there's not a damn thing women can do about it. We can find this in most of the Middle Eastern nations. We can find this basically anywhere that we look, right? They can't actually do anything about it. Also, when it comes to rights, rights are a social construction, product of the mind. Because of that, they are not inherent. And since this is the case, force is what is the practical applicator. And if men decided to, by force, take away women's rights, women cannot do anything about it. The opposite is not true. If women wanted to take away men's rights,
You can sell this.
They could try, but they would fail. We all know that.
And men didn't want to let them, they could not. And because of this force doctrine application, women's rights all come from men, not inherently from themselves. Therefore, feminism is a lie, complete lie. That's force doctrine. I don't know if you had anything to say about it.
Well, aside from the fact
It basically is a very convoluted way of saying feminism doesn't really exist because men are the ones who gave women the rights in the first place. So men are still the ones in charge and there's nothing women can do about it. That's pretty much what he said in a very, very long-worded, convoluted way. Okay?
that is genuinely a terrifying idea. I think that the idea that men could just take away our rights and wipe us away is why feminism is necessary, is because we are trying.
No, but just because men can do something doesn't mean we would do something. Like, we could have started a nuclear war at any point in the last 100 years, but it hasn't happened because of good men. So you can't then make us all out like to be bad because of the bad men, if that makes sense. Like, I get really sick of this. I blaming all women because of these couple of bitches, and then blaming all men because these couple of dickheads. And we all kind of do it here and there, but we need to learn that, like, you know, just because half of women think like this doesn't mean the other half think like that. And just because most men are like this doesn't mean all men are. Like, she just literally whinged about speaking in monoliths to Andrew, and she's now she's literally putting men in this entire bracket, if that makes sense. The whole debate, she's had me in a bracket. I'm included in this. I've never been violent in my life. Do you know what I mean? Like, and she's talking about me. She doesn't to understand. She's a feminist. She needs to understand it from a male's perspective, right? She's sitting there, stating things about women as a whole, and men as a whole, and not once has said, well, not all men are like this, or you know, I know not all men are like this, or sort of thing. It's a very much we are all like this sort of thing.
To get enough men, I suppose, on our side, if you think about it in terms of like a military occupation, so that that wouldn't happen, because I think that it is possible for men to take away our rights at a blanket pace. But I don't agree.
Men could take away everyone's rights if we wanted to. But why would we do that? Why? Just because you can do something doesn't mean you should do something. Like, every single human on the earth, all 8 billion of us, could walk up to someone and punch them in the face. But we're not going to do it. Just because you can do it doesn't mean you're going to, does it? So you can't build an argument based on the premise that just because you can do something, you would. Because just because you can doesn't mean you would. Do you know? Does that make sense? Am I just being stupid here?
With your conclusion based off that premise, though, I don't believe that women inherently don't have rights that is given to us by men. And the reason why is because I believe that all human beings inherently should have equality and human dignity, which is although I'm not...
All humans is a bracket I would use, but let's be honest, right? I don't agree with the statement that all humans should be treated equally, because some humans have done such awful evil acts that they are more inhuman or inhumane than human. Like the very worst serial killers, the very worst sex offenders, the very worst, of the worst, are not human. They are inhumane. They are inhuman. They're the opposite of human. They don't have empathy. They don't have... do you know what I mean? They're not humans. So I do not consider those people as equal to me because they've made decisions and choices in their life that made them less. And I have made decisions and actions in my life that made me more. So I do not consider all humans equal. I consider most of us equal, sure, most of us. But those who have done certain things, no, certainly not. No fucking way. Some innocent man who has never been arrested in his life is not equal to a rapist or a murderer or do you know, it's just, don't be silly. Don't be fucking silly.
Catholic, it's a term that was very much focused on in my Catholic high school. I went to public school and then Catholic high school.
But it's an axiom?
About human dignity.
It's just axiomatic.
Yeah, I mean, it's still important though to me because I think that because the societies that we have created have necessitated the need or have created the need for laws and for structure in government. And so there are many philosophers that have talked about how important it is to have government, right? But
philosophers talk about everything. Philosophy is really just asking questions that everyone else is afraid to ask or making points that help summarize an issue. Or it's not complicated. It's just essentially why, what, who, when, and all that bullshit, and then putting it all into a little catchy phrase. What was the point? I must have had a point there.
And so there are many philosophers that have talked about how important it is
the government. So, being a philosopher myself, although some people might doubt that, don't really care. It depends. Government is like an entity that controls the population or manages and maintains the population, so to speak. We only need that because we've built a world in which that's needed, if that makes sense. If the human race, instead of deciding to be capitalist, had decided to be some tree-hugging hippies, fucking, much more environmentally friendly, or just we didn't go for capitalism, some other method. I'm not saying communism. Someone might suggest I'm a communist. I don't give a fuck. But instead of having a state-controlled thing, we used to have, obviously, royalty. And then before that, it was just herds and, well, not herds, fucking tribes. We had tribes. So you had the religious leader of the tribe, which the shamans, the druids, the priests, before Christianity was druids and shamans. And then you had the authority, which was usually the alpha male, which was the lead warrior, or if there was not a suitable lead warrior, the elder. Because they had the best interest of the pack that, the male would protect the tribe and their best interests. But obviously, corruption and things over time, people were like, oh, well, one person's no good. We need to have more than one person, so one person can't take the piss. So then they put in loads of people so that not one person can take the piss. And now we're at the situation where loads of people just take the piss. So that didn't work, did it? It didn't work. Every government in the world is taking the piss out of its population. My government in the UK has just give themselves a pay rise, something like 5%, about 6 months ago or something. And coincidentally, now they're going to make cuts to disabled people's money to pay for defence spending. Wink, wink. It's for defence spending. It's not for the pay rises that they've just accepted. And then they're going to force a pay cut on the disabled to pay for it. So they had to disguise it as defence spending, you see. But that's how we got to this situation, is because we've built the world this way. So you wouldn't actually need a government if the world had been built differently. But it's too late now.
have government, right? But because of the fact that men can take it away does not mean that men thus give to us, right? Like, men are not gods. It is something that is inherent to each of us that we should have the...
Yes, we are. I've never said this to anyone, but I believe every human is god of their own universe. You are all gods of your own world. Your power is determined on your ability to understand yourself, not on the ability given to you. So, you are god of your own realm. Literally, you are the highest power in your life. You are god of your world. Every human on earth is their own god of their own universe, if that makes sense. Because we all experience life subjectively. Just like Einstein used to say, time is experienced subjectively because we all experience it differently. Life is experienced differently for everyone. Sometimes I lose my point, but I'm sure I made it.
Ability to live and self-govern, have autonomy. And I think the fact that men could take it away actually goes to my point about how a lot of them do. And a lot of them try to take our autonomy and make us feel unsafe and harm us, which you were previously...
At least she said a lot there. So she's proved me wrong again, because she's been putting us all in a box the whole time, and then she just separated us there. So that's the third time she's proved me wrong.
But actually seems like you agree with me on that it's a possibility for men to do that.
No, it's descriptively true. I'm not giving an ought, I'm giving a descriptive reality.
But because it's a descriptive reality,
the truth is that you appealed to patriarchy.
I have no idea what... I have not said appeal to patriarchy. What are you talking about?
When you said the whole goal is to get more men on our side, you're appealing to a patriarchy.
Well, it's not the whole goal, but is a goal. Yes, I should correct myself.
And so what you're trying to do is you're trying to appeal to the very demographic which can take away your rights at any time, conceding that if you do not have them on your side, you cannot maintain your rights. That is not ever true of men, which is why you'll always end up with a default patriarchy, the more feminist push. I don't know if you're looking at the modern world now.
It's the modern world, because it's not necessarily a default.
It's always going to be a default.
But in a lot of tribes, they were very matriarchal, and like women were at the head of the family.
There's never been a matriarchy in the world.
That is not true at all.
Give me one.
Okay, I will look it up for you.
It's going to be an Indian tribe, and I'll refute it. Watch.
Well, indigenous people largely have...
It's going to be an Indian tribe, and I'm going to refute it.
I think you should just use the term indigenous.
I think you should just use the term Indian. I don't see any problem with it at all.
Oh, I think they do.
I don't think so. Indians themselves call themselves Indians.
Calling an Indian person Indian is not racist. Like, an Indian person is proud to be Indian. So it's not offensive to call an Indian person Indian. It's only offensive if you use it in a negative way. The same as it's perfectly normal to call a black man a black man. But if you say it in a negative way, then that's racist. How is she a psychologist, bros? Honest, how?
Indigenous people in the United States do not call themselves Indians.
Yes, they do.
They're on about Native Americans. Sorry, I'm wrong here. I've got the wrong end of the stick. I don't imagine Native Americans appreciate being called Indians, but I don't know. I don't know. I've never spoke to a Native American about this. I've never asked them if they don't mind, if they like being called. I don't imagine they get offended by it unless it's used negatively. I imagine. But I can't speak for them. I got the wrong end of the stick. Fine.
It's like black people call themselves black people, not African American. What are you talking about?
I went from this.
Yeah, see, when he said Indian people, I meant curry Indian, not like tomahawk Indian.
This way.
Do you think that all black people call themselves African American?
This is a moot point, so I'm not going to even go into this with you.
Well, you're the one who wanted to tell police to say that I had to say Native American instead of Indian.
So basically, I'm pulling up the matriarchs for you.
I'm going to have to end the recording soon because I need a break. But I'm exhausted. It's like nearly 3 hours.
And there are obviously a number of
I will watch the rest of it, though, because this has been good. And I'll try and do, it'll probably be 3-parter. I'll watch the rest of this and I'll react. And you can all have the TheWiseJames opinion on it.
That have thrived.
Whatever that's worth.
And there's a whole document, but in China, in Costa Rica, the Bribri people.
Yeah, name one. Any of them that you think is
okay.
a matriarchy?
Okay.
A matriarchal society.
They have a society with an estimated 12,000 to 35,000 members. That is a matriarchy. And that is BRI, Bribri in Costa Rica. Or you could look at there's a Kenyan tribe, that's UMOJA, that are all matriarchies. They have women at the helm that are leading their...
While the Bribri tribe society is often described as matrilineal, it's not actually a matriarchy. Women are the heads of households responsible for passing down culture and land, but the men have the most important role as the authority officers of the tribe. They are the ones who defend, and they have chiefs too, male chief. That's not a matriarchy.
Well, I found a different article. We could just go back and forth all day.
Yeah, let's look at it.
So the Bribri, so this is the intercontinental cry. Bribri, I don't know if you speak Spanish, but Bribri un matriarcado moderno. So I speak a little bit, I'm not like fully fluent. But anyways.
Why did her speaking Spanish have anything to do with this? Do you know what I mean?
And they're talking about how the clan structure means that tribal lineage is passed down through the mother.
Yeah, matrilineally.
Yes, and also in the home, I know the difference.
But if something is matrilineal, doesn't make it a matriarchy.
I know, but they're saying that women in this article play a primary role in government as well.
Primary role is not the same as in control.
Yeah, but not. But see what you did there? You did a smuggle. They play a primary role in government. That doesn't make it a matriarchy.
But it's a system. Do you know what a matriarchy is, though?
Yeah, it would be women broadly in charge of all of the systems.
It's a system of social structure where they hold a lot of power.
They hold the majority power.
And that's what
the decisions of the men are at their behest in any...
But that's what the article just said of the Bribri tribe.
No,
I don't know. Again, I just found a different article.
Any matriarchy...
I don't know if I should speak to what's going on.
Any matriarchy that I've ever investigated, which is supposedly a matriarchy, we find very quickly that men are in the prominent positions of authority on force, which means that any matriarchy is living at the behest of the men. That's it.
So is your point that men are better then because they have brute force? Or what...
See... I get really annoyed when women do this as well. Like she just projected again her wrong interpretation of him, and she's going to suggest it back at him as if he said it, and then hold him to account for saying something he hasn't said.
It's your point that men should be in charge governmentally?
No, my point is I'm not giving an ought. We have to agree first to a descriptor. The descriptive truth is that it is, in fact, the case that women have to appeal to men for all of their rights, period, by your own admission. That's why you're trying to get them on your side. Because if you don't have them, they can basically cage women up if they wanted to, and there's nothing women could do about it.
Right, but that doesn't mean that men are therefore better or should be in charge. Like, I'm confused. Like, what's the actual point, like the conclusion that you're making here?
The point here is that men being in charge is obviously and clearly they're very benevolent, because at any time they so choose, they can lock all women up. There's nothing they can do about it. And the reverse is not true, which is so interesting. You're literally at the mercy, women are at the mercy globally and always have been, of men. And yet we're monsterized and demonized by feminists. That's what we're literally considered demons by
villainized
by feminists. You did it by your own admission today with your own stats, trying to make us out to be sexually assaulting monsters, didn't you?
I agree with Andrew. That's exactly what she did. Exactly what she did. And that is the one thing I can't stand about most feminists, is that I have literally spent my entire life trying to protect the women around me, my mother, my sister, the women in my life, my daughter. I've spent my entire life trying to protect the women around me. And to have a woman sit there and make me out to be a villain who attacks women is fucking disgusting. Like, I hate it. How dare she? Like, that's like me saying all women are prostitutes because there's a lady on the corner. Do you know, how would women feel about that? Do you know, it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous.
Even know the counter stats.
Didn't say that. Never
Yeah,
said
that's
that.
what it appears to be, though, from the onlooker's perspective.
I feel like you have these generic talking points that you try to apply to feminists, but I haven't really been very reactive or calling you names. I'm trying not to. I have, but
you have acted exactly like a feminist today, madame.
Okay, but
okay,
I feel like
nobody's going to be confused about that at all.
All right.
The whole snobbery.
I'm not insulted by that.
The whole snobbery towards authority. You're going to do what I want. The finger clap thing. You did the whole feminist trope. The entire thing.
Okay.
But what I would like is a refutation here.
Can I speak now?
Can you agree?
I feel like it's my time
Can
a
you
little
agree
bit.
that it is the case that women have to appeal to men for their rights and not the other way around?
I will not ever agree to the fact that we should appeal to men for our rights. I think that is an inherently misogynistic question. Have to?
Have to.
No. Do not
Okay,
agree.
well then where do rights come from?
Why did she change it from have to ought to? Like, there's a bit should do and have to are not the same things. Like, the reason women had to get their rights from men is because men had the authority to give them the rights. If that makes sense. So if it was the other way around and we lived in a matriarchy for the entire of human history and women were in charge the entire time and they controlled the rights, it would be the case that women were the ones who gave men rights. Like, I know it sounds stupid that a feminist would hate to hear that men gave women the female rights in a way, but it's technically correct, because if we live in a patriarchy where men control everything, then when the patriarchy gave the females in the patriarchy the right to vote, the males gave the right to vote to the females. If that makes sense. So that is Andrew's point. That is essentially what his point is. So it is correct, but like he's using the same sort of rhetoric that feminists use back at her. Like, if that makes sense. So it's correct. Like, it's pointless refuting it, and she changed it from what he said to something else instantly.
That women have to appeal to men.
Have to appeal to men.
For their rights, and not the other way around.
I will not ever agree to the fact that we should appeal to men.
See, he didn't say should. Why did she change it? Why do some women do that? Why did she change it from have to should? Like, he didn't say that.
For our rights. I think that is an inherently misogynistic question.
See, she tried to make out he was a misogynist for saying something she said. See, if you suggested that women should have to get their rights from men, that's misogynistic. But the fact they had to, because men were the ones in authority, is not. It's just the way it was. That's not misogynistic. It's a fucking fact. That's the way it was. It doesn't mean you're oppressing women or making out women are less of or trying to make out men are superior. So it can't be misogynistic. But if you say should, then it's indicating that the women should, like, need permission for that rights, rather than it should be given as a given, if that makes sense. But he didn't say should, he said have. So she's changed his words into a misogynistic sentence and then tried to hold him account for something he didn't say and called him a misogynist for it. It's literally the feminist playbook, 101. 101, how to be a feminist.
Have to.
No.
Okay, well then where do rights come from?
They should be inherent to every person, but again, I think I should be able to lead this. So give me a second, because again, like, you've just been a little bit insulting the last few minutes, so I feel like when that happens, it's just like a good change of pace is important. But
well, I do need to keep it on the topic at hand. But
which again, where were we? Can you repeat the question?
Right. So I asked you where rights come from.
Where rights come from, if you can address that.
Okay, but then I get to speak.
Respond.
More.
Yeah, you can.
Okay, but it's on forced doctrine and rights.
Respond.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay. Well, I think the fact that we're debating a topic that you came up with is a little bit strange personally, but I was going to say that I think that rights are inherent. I think that they should be related to all people, just like the fact that we are human beings. We shouldn't have to appeal to any person for authority. And again, the fact that men are stronger, bigger, more powerful doesn't mean that they give or take away people's rights. I'm not religious necessarily, but I think if I was, I would probably tell you that I think God is the person that, relates and who gives.
I heard it even though I was in the kitchen. She changed it to appeal this time, right? Do you know what it was? Men had to appeal for the right to vote as well. And do you know how we did that? With wars. And if we didn't get what we wanted, we didn't fight for them. That's how we got our rights. That's how all men got the rights we have today, was by refusing to do what some daft cunt wanted us to do unless they did this. That's how we did it, right? We also had to fight for our rights. Like, this is insane. Like, we feminists live in a world where somehow men always had rights and women never did. That's not how it was at all. There was literally Viking women who owned land and were far more powerful than any man because the wealth got passed down and women were treated equally in Viking society. So they had land and massive amounts of wealth, controlled armies and shit, And they weren't like a queen, just a woman. Just some woman with a fucking cottage, whatever. Some fucking shack and some boats. He's having a laugh. Like, she changed it to appeal, so it sounds misogynistic. But men had to appeal for our votes. So how is it...
any person for authority. And again, the fact that men are stronger, bigger, more powerful doesn't mean that they give or take away people's rights. I'm not religious necessarily, but I think if I was, I would probably tell you that I think God is the person that, relates and who gives people their human dignity and rights, but I think it's inherent. I think that we should all have the right to live and be free of violence, and I think that those who offend and try to put people in cages, those are the people that should be jailed. I don't
like psychologists who put mental health patients in cages and then force injections into them against their will and call it medical treatment and lobotomize them when they get caught out with medical negligence, so they try and hide it. Yeah, people like psychologists. Yeah, completely agree.
I think that's a blank.
Shouldn't put people in cages. That's correct, especially the most vulnerable in our society, and treat them like human experimentation, like the Nazis did. Yes, that's correct, lady.
Get statements.
Yeah. So I would just you keep on saying rights should be inherent.
I don't like psychologists, by the way.
That doesn't tell me anything about where rights come from. Where do rights come from? Where do we ascribe rights?
Well, I think that you're thinking very
And I think that's psychiatrists as well. But yeah.
United States, government centric.
Anywhere. You can pick anywhere on planet. I don't care where you pick.
Okay.
Where are rights coming from?
They are coming from the set of people that are in charge.
Not knowing what's going on in my...
Fucking, that was a good click, that was. Fucking hell.
The government. And to your point, that's the patriarchy. However, I agree.
Be ending this at 3 hours because I'm not having longer than that.
To that point. However, I'm saying that does not mean that men, since they create the ability to give people rights and take it away, that doesn't mean that men it should be that way. It shouldn't. I don't know if that makes sense.
So men have been guaranteeing your rights the entire time you've been alive?
No, that's definitely not true.
Well, I don't understand. I thought that you just said
also,
rights come from the government. The government is the patriarchy. The patriarchy then is giving you rights, right?
Right, but the government isn't
It makes a good point. It makes a very good point.
Apparently, the government is influenced by patriarchy, but it's not all men making decisions in the past it was.
Would you say it's mostly in charge by men?
Yeah, but again, I think that your points that you're making are very misogynistic. I think the point of what you're saying.
How is it misogynistic to state a fact?
Listen.
Is we should be grateful to.
I think the points you're making are very misandrist. I mean, that doesn't tell us.
But
anything.
I don't hate men, so that's not a very good
I don't hate
insult.
women.
Okay, but your question inherently is rooted in the fact that you think that there is male superiority and that men are in charge.
Descriptively, men are stronger than women. Yeah. Descriptively.
Yes.
You're not going to argue that point, right?
On average, I suppose, yeah.
Yeah, on average. Well, I mean, it's a strong average, though.
Sure.
Yeah, teenage soccer teams are beating, female pro player teams, right?
Sure.
You agree that that's the case? Okay, great. So if that's the case, and we can agree, and you agree that the governments of the world are patriarchal, then you have to concede that the patriarchy is giving you your rights right now.
I will never concede that, and the reason why is...
But that's illogical. How could you... If the system you're living in is patriarchal, then how did the patriarchy not give you the rights that you have now? I'm as confused as Andrew's face is. He's got one eye closed, one eye open confusion. That what? That's when I struggle to understand something. I do the same. The brain just goes error.
Because I think that is rooted in the idea that women should be grateful. You're telling me that I should essentially be grateful to you for the fact that I'm not in a cage right now, and that's
not what he said at all. That's literally not what he said at all. She's trying to make this out so she can back up calling him a misogynist when nothing he said was misogynistic. It might have come across as a misogynistic thing because he's talking about the patriarchy being, the patriarchy. So if we live in a patriarchy and women got the rights under a patriarchy, then the patriarch, by logic and default of implication, had to have given those feminists that right that they were fighting for. Therefore, the patriarchy gave all the women alive today the current laws and rights they have, which is a right that if she thinks you live in a patriarchy, you'd have to consider that and concede it. There's no getting around it. It's a perfectly foolproof, flawless bit of logic by Andrew there. You cannot beat that. You either have to concede or deny, and denial will make you look foolish.
Not assaulting me as we speak. Like, that does not mean that I should be grateful to you.
So she's trying manipulation to make him look like he's misogynist. It's not going to work, though. Like, that manipulation is not a tactic that's going to work in most debates. Like, it's just not.
Right to free speech, and the fact that it's enforced by men. The patriarchy is the ones giving you that by your own admission.
Listen, so my theory is the way it should be. This is what I think. This is the way that it was before we had colonization and all the imperialism and stuff. There's a blanket statement, right? Or there's a blanket right to life, to autonomy, to all these things, right? That are just given to you by the nature of being human. And there are certain entities and people and oppressive regimes that then come in and they try to take those things away from you.
Yeah,
now,
warring tribe theory.
Well, because they give you those things, or because the government gives you the right to exist.
Andrew reads too many books.
Now, right, doesn't mean it's a benevolent doesn't mean the patriarchy is benevolent because it.
Yeah, but just because something isn't benevolent doesn't mean it's antagonistic or oppressive, if that makes sense. Just because something isn't one thing doesn't make it automatically the other.
Is currently giving me these rights, and I'm not sitting and trapped in my house like I am in a different country.
What would make it malevolent?
What would make it malevolent?
Yeah.
I think
that's the word I was looking for. Malevolent. Thank you.
In places like
I'm
like
talking about
Afghanistan,
here in the United States, which is a patriarchy by your own admission, giving you rights. What would make it malevolent?
I think that there are a lot of current things that are malevolent, like in legislation and things like that are attacks on bodily autonomy and the overturning
abortion.
The Dobbs decision or the
but you would consider your First Amendment a benevolent right, your Third Amendment, your Fifth Amendment.
I think these things are all inherent. I don't understand. Just because it's written by the government doesn't mean that it should inherently be.
It can't be benevolent. Listen, that's a contradiction. You can't say it's inherent and the government gives them to us.
No, the government.
That's a contradiction.
The government does.
It is a contradiction. That's 100%. She has to concede.
But it doesn't mean anything. We should already have these things. If
shoulda, coulda, woulda. We're dealing with reality, not fantasy. Shoulda, coulda, woulda.
How do you have them? How do you have them absent a government?
Being. You should just be able to walk around and be free.
How? How do you have that without force? How?
I mean,
how is it even possible?
I think you're looking at it through a lens of imperialism, and I don't.
We should all just live in the forest, man, and eat leaves and berries, man. Look, the truth of the matter is, right? If you had a free society where people didn't have a government, there was no enforcement agency, then that means there is no protection. So if there was no governments, you would still be living in a world where there was pirates and thieves around every corner trying to rob you when you went from one place to the next. And there would be no one to stop them, no one to help you, and it would be your own fault not being able to defend yourself that something happened. It's no one's fault. As much as a free world where we don't have government sounds like a great idea, if you have no way to protect, if you have no authority, you have no enforcement, you have no rules, you have no laws, you're as free to kill as you are as free to be peaceful. So as much as a free society sounds great, to be free to do what you want, you do have to have laws and rules, and you do have to have something or someone to enforce those rules and laws. And if people break those rules and laws, someone to stop that and make sure it doesn't happen. As much as the let's just live in the woods, man, sounds great, no, it's dangerous. We are no longer in a world where that is possible. You can only live in that existence where there's so little humans, you rarely come across each other. But when there's 8 billion of us, that's just not possible. That idea of that world is gone. It's never coming back. The only way you'll get that is on a new planet.
I think that force was always necessary. It hasn't always been necessary to conquer other people.
Why do you keep saying I'm looking at it through a lens of? I literally told you my lens of force doctrine, explained it descriptively. It has nothing to do with imperialism. It has to do with this. You're walking around and there's no government. If you're walking around, there's no government. Where do your rights come from then?
Yeah, females would have no rights again. If there was no government, no one has any rights. Nobody has rights.
Okay, this is just like such a silly
Please
question.
answer the question.
Okay, so if there's no government and I'm walking around, my right to be alive, my right to find a partner.
Can someone come around and kill you? Can someone come around and kill you?
Yes, but in that case, there have historically always been ways of punishing people who take those away. So the people who take them away are
like
offenders.
a government?
Hold on, just let her finish.
A government?
Some people beat their own logic with their own points that they make later on.
Go ahead.
Hold on, Andrew.
Okay.
I do it myself
The people
sometimes.
who take those things away from you, if they don't decide to take it away, it doesn't mean that they're good, right? So like a really horrible example that for a lot of women is true is if I am a woman and I have not had intercourse with anybody and a man is my friend and he decides that he's not going to take my virginity from me, does that mean he is a good person inherently by not assaulting me? No, it doesn't, because that should be the standard, right? And so if someone comes in and they take it away and then they tell me that they can or they can't in the future, right? That's essentially to me what you're saying is just because the government is giving
That may be a Freudian slip.
me the right to walk around and have this conversation with you today means that I should be thankful and I should, not be concerned with things, and that you guys are actually benevolent. The patriarchy is benevolent because I'm not in a cage, because I'm not being assaulted.
Yeah, that's not what's being
So
said.
that
But
is-
anyway, can you answer my question though? If there's no government, where do your rights come from?
I am beyond proud.
Just gonna wait to the end of this point, and then I'll be having an intermission between this and the next video. I need to go and have a lie down. It's been a long video for me.
I think we've already been over this. I think you've asked me quite a few times.
You didn't actually answer listen, what you did was
I've already told you human dignity, so.
Well, human dignity, you can't account for dignity.
Dignity.
In a secular worldview, what is dignity? It's just whatever you think dignity is. So tell me this, real quick.
I think dignity is walking around with a colander on your head.
You have rights. They're inherent.
Okay. Are you talking about legal, moral, or human? Let's omit legal, right? Because I'm talking about in a hypothetical
Literally
society.
any.
Okay, moral and human rights.
Yeah.
And for me, it's
Yeah.
rooted in the philosophical natural law.
Natural
theory.
law is Catholic. You don't believe in Catholicism. You would have to have God to back up natural law.
Okay, but that is what I developed my beliefs around because I used to believe in God.
No, that's it. If you.
So she stated a belief on a belief system that she no longer believes in anymore. And she just realised that she said that. Which is why she's pulled that face. Like, shit. Can't believe you just said that. Man. Imagine building your belief system on something you don't even believe in anymore, and then stating it as your belief. Like, I'm gonna have to end here. Like, go for a break or something. My head hurts. I swear. These two are doing my fucking nutting.
You don't appeal to God for your natural rights. You're making a naturalist fallacy.
Okay, I believe in God.
That's a fallacious argument.
How do you know that I don't believe in God?
Because you told me.
Okay, well, I
Yeah, I'll take a break there. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll upload this first, and then I'll do part 2 later on today. All right, take care. Peace. Fucking hell. I wouldn't want to be sat in the room with these two for much longer, I tell you. Poor Brian. He deserves a medal for putting up with these two, honestly.